Chapter 5074. Updated quickly. Sumu didn't like her mother very much, just like her mother didn't like her. But to be honest, at least Wang Yuan gave Su Jian and Su Shao a mother's love, and there was still something redeeming about her. However, her father pushed the family into the fire again and again. Sumu sat silently by the bed, took a fruit from the side, and peeled it for Su Chong. Su Chong took it and took a bite. "My daughter is the best." Sumu still looked at him quietly and didn't say anything. Su Chong took a bite of the apple and regained his high spirits. "When I get out of the hospital and raise some money, I'll definitely be able to make a comeback. Mew Mew, after I get rich, you can live a good life, and you can also take back the Cymbidium Chinense. There's no need to separate. I know you can't bear to part with that guy." Sumu looked at her father. "How much? How much?" Su Chong took a bite and asked after eating. Sumu said softly, "How much did you lose, with interest?" Hearing what she said, Su Chong shivered. "Not much. Don't worry about it. Sumu, go back and do your thing. Can I handle it? Did someone break one of your legs, or did you lose your life?" Sumu said straightforwardly. "Or did your family break up and die for you?" Su Chong slowed down his eating speed. He looked at his daughter and said, "It can't be so cruel. It's just a small game of cards." Sumu was so angry that she laughed. "Dad, how can you lose millions of dollars by playing a small game of cards?" Su Chong touched his hair and said, "It's not that terrible. It's really just a small game of cards. Everyone is playing. How can it be so much? Your mother must be lying again. I'm telling you, she's going through menopause now. You can't listen to what she says." Sumu said softly, "Mom is in the police station now. She wants to sell me to the Yi family again." Su Chong was dumbfounded. After a while, he touched his head and said, "This woman is so unreasonable. Didn't I say that I wouldn't look for you after taking the money?" Sumu looked down. "I also think that she doesn't want to look for me, if it weren't for the fact that you're in so much debt." Su Chong lowered his head as if he had just realized that he had done something wrong. Sumu looked at him. "Dad, how much do you owe?" Su Chong lowered his head and said in a low voice, "Not much." Sumu asked again patiently, and he coughed softly. "I just played a few rounds. It's just over 2 million. Sumu laughed angrily. "Dad, you're not a rich man. 2 million is nothing to you. Don't you know that the whole family has been forced to a dead end by you?" Su Chong didn't say anything. Then, he tilted his head and looked out the window. He said faintly, "I know I've committed a heinous crime. I told your mother not to come to see me, and I told Jian and Shaoqing not to come either. But they didn't listen and insisted on looking for you. Look, they're even locked inside." At this moment, he seemed to be possessed by a loving father. He said thoughtfully, "Why don't you just let your mother divorce me? After the divorce, I have nothing to do with them. I don't need anyone to care about my life or death." Sumu listened to his nagging and felt an indescribable feeling in her heart. She knew that her mother would not divorce her father. Wang Yuan hated Su Chong to death, but she was very strong-willed. Outside, she would call him our big Chong, our big Chong. After returning home, she would quarrel with him, but she would not divorce him. Perhaps after the divorce, Su Chong would be able to reflect on himself. However, life was like this. He could only complain and make do with it. Chapter 5075. Sumu was exhausted for her. She thought for a moment and said, "Sell the house. I heard that the house is worth 5 or 6 million yuan. After selling it, we can split it. As for whether Mom is willing to live with you or not, it's one thing, but now it's more important to stay alive." Su Chong looked at her and wanted to say something but stopped. After a while, he said in a low voice, "Mew Mew, you'd better go back. Don't worry about the family. Your mom doesn't like you, and I'm afraid that you'll be wronged. Besides, it doesn't matter. I'm already very happy that you can come to see me. I'm really very happy." As he spoke, he wiped away his tears. Sumu felt very sad. She looked at the man in front of her and felt that his life was really not as good as a dog's. It was hateful and infuriating. She lowered her eyes and said in a low voice, Dad, think about it. If there's a chance, start over. She got up and took out the 200,000 yuan from her bag and gave it to Su Qiong. 200,000 yuan is all I have. Take it. If it's not enough, you can discuss it with Mom. After all, we've been husband and wife for so many years. She really didn't want to say too much, so she got up and left. Su Qiong sat there in a daze. Then, he suddenly took the card and cried bitterly. Then, he ran to the elevator with one leg regardless of anything else. Miu Miu. He called Su Mu's name. Su Mu turned her head and looked at him quietly. Su Daqiang jumped over and said in a low and deep voice, "You can't take this money. It's your savings. You have to buy some food for the children. You often go to see the children and you can't be without something in your hands. It's too shabby and people will look down on you." He stuffed the card into Su Mu's palm and said, "Dad is most sorry for you. Jian, Shaoqing, and your mom love you the most. You're all alone. I'm too outrageous." As he said that, he slapped himself hard twice. The nurse in the distance saw it and pointed at him. Su Mu looked over and said helplessly, "Dad, let me help you in. Don't do this in the future. The nurse will laugh at you." Only then did Su Qiong feel the pain in his leg. He grinned and said, "Hey, your mom also said that I was very handsome when I was young." Su Mu supported him and couldn't help but say, "My mom also said that no matter if you're robbed or raped, you'll disappoint the other party." Su Qiong grinned and said, "Did your mom really say that?" Su Mu said, "Did you say that?" She thought to herself that her father was really optimistic, and her mother was such a strong woman. She didn't know who she took after, but she didn't seem to take after anyone. She was to say, "Su." He was Su Qiong was too. Su Qiong was quite reluctant. He had lived here for 2 days and had not seen a single person. Shaoqing was still young, and Jian did not come to visit him. But it made sense, he would only be implicated if she came to visit him. Book. Sun Thousand lying. You in to the bed. In. Moo Moo bed. Su Mu also talked to him about selling the house. It seemed that this was the only way for him to go. Su Qiong agreed vaguely and stuffed the card into Su Mu's hand. "You're a child. You're a child. Do you think you should worry about adults?" Su Mu knew what was going on. She didn't worry too much. She left the hospital and took a taxi. A white BMW stopped on the side of the road. The person who got out of the car surprised her. They looked at each other. After a long time, Shen Wenshuan said in a low voice, "Are you still worried?" Su Mu kicked the stone under her feet and said, "Yes, I'm worried. Come and have a look." Chapter 5076. Shen Wenshuan smiled. "Let me drive you. There are probably no taxis left at this hour. It's getting late." He followed her here. Su Mu didn't say anything and got into his car. When she got into the car, she didn't notice that a girl had taken a photo of her getting into Shen Wenshuan's car. Later, holding the phone in her hand, she murmured, "Sister, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, but I need money." This girl was Su Jian, Su Mu's sister. She looked in the direction of the white car. "I don't want to lose my parents either. I don't want to. So, sister, I have to sacrifice you." After Shen Wenshuan sent Su Mu back, he said a few words downstairs. "If you need money, you can tell me." Shen Wenshuan said softly, "Su Mu, sometimes you are too stubborn. We are friends after all." Su Mu said, "Thank you, Shen Wenshuan." It seemed that they couldn't find a better and more suitable word to say to each other except thank you. Those things of the past could only be known by each other. Su Mu went upstairs. Shen Wenshuan looked up at her. Later, he leaned against the car and smoked a cigarette. Then he left. Early the next morning, an explosive news hit all the major entertainment media, even the financial section. After all, this matter was related to the president of Stars Entertainment and the entire Yi family. The whole Stars Entertainment was covered with a layer of love. Under the dim light, the male lead and the female lead stood under the street lamp. They seemed to be in love. There was also a photo of the female lead sitting in the male lead's car. The angle was very good. It was obvious that they were in a relationship. The male lead was Shun Wenshuan, the son-in-law of the Yi family. The female lead was Su Mu. These wonderful photos were sold by Su Jian for 2 million, and she sold Su Mu again. Early in the morning, the atmosphere inside Stars Entertainment was extremely low. The news outside was so hot that it was hard to get rid of it. It was too explosive. Yi Xiangnan sat in the president's office with a livid face. It was no longer about his face, but about Yi Hui, who was pregnant. He called Shun Wenshuan. Shun Wenshuan didn't deny that he had met Su Mu, except that he had ignored some details. Yi Xiangnan stared at him and suddenly got up and punched Shun Wenshuan. Shun Wenshuan took a step back and wiped the blood on the corner of his mouth. Then he chuckled, "President Yi, did you punch me for Yi Hui?" Yi Xiangnan said nobly, "Of course. Don't tell me it was because of that woman, Su Mu?" "That woman?" Shun Wenxian lowered his eyes. "Is that how you address her? Does she have no place in your heart at all? Is that why you humiliate her? That woman?" Shun Wenshuan said indifferently, "Is that what you call her? Is it because she has no place in your heart that you humiliate her?" Shun Wenshuan said indifferently, "Yes, I like Su Mu. The worse you treat her, the more worried I am. Are you satisfied now, President Yi? You didn't even ask what she went through yesterday before you judged her guilty. You don't even care about her character. If you don't care about her, why do you occupy her and not let her be happy? You don't give her a chance to find someone else. Yi Xiangnan, you don't admit the fact that you are a bastard at all." He said this in one breath, but he didn't expect Yi Hui to come and stand at the door. Her little face turned pale and then she ran out. Chapter 5077. Yi Hui ran out. Yi Xiangnan said coldly, "Shun Wenshuan, are you satisfied, you bastard?" Shun Wenshuan threw another punch. "CEO Yi, are you satisfied with this answer? You always treat Su Mu high and mighty. Even though you know in your heart that with her pride and self-esteem, she won't do anything to harm Yi Hui, the first thing you do is to vent your anger on her. Yi Xiangnan, is she your punching bag? How much have you given her for her to be treated like this?" Shun Wenshuan took another punch and Shun Wenshuan took it. Then, he straightened his body and said, "Yi Hui is hurt. You're worried about her, but Su Mu is also a woman. She was sent to the police station by her mother yesterday. I went there because they have my phone records. I accompanied her there when we were in university. Later, she went to the hospital to visit her father." Shun Wenshuan had a clear conscience. The only bad thing was that he had said those words to provoke Yi Xiangnan. Last night, even an ordinary friend would accompany Su Mu. It was because of Yi Hui that he didn't accompany her the whole time. A photo made people's hearts turn cold. Shun Wenshuan walked out and called Yi Hui, but her phone was turned off. He knew that she was angry. When she was angry, she didn't want to talk to people, but she also wouldn't scold people. She would hide and cry alone. At this time, Shun Wenshuan should actually care about Su Mu. But Yi Hui was pregnant with his child, so he had to care about her more. Sometimes, love was not as important as responsibility. He thought that he liked Yi Hui. Yi Hui was young, cute, and had a good personality. There was no reason for him not to like her. He really wanted to treat her well. He would apologize for what he said just now. He thought that with her soft temper, she wouldn't be angry for long. When he reached downstairs, her car was still there. The driver said that she didn't get out. Shun Wenshuan searched the offices one by one. This caused a big commotion. The entire Stars City was saying that lawyer Shun and his ex-girlfriend, who was CEO Yi's precious ex-wife, might be together. Something indescribable happened yesterday. Not only was CEO Yi furious, but Miss Yi Hui was also heartbroken. Therefore, ex-boyfriends and girlfriends should never be in the same house. Later, Secretary Li and Secretary Xiao also led a group of secretaries to look for him, but after searching for a long time, they still couldn't find him. Yi Hui sneaked into Yi Xiangnan's office again. At that moment, she was being comforted by her brother. Yi Xiangnan's heart ached for her. Shun Wenshuan only sent Su Mu off. "Nothing will happen. I don't know what your man is like, but with Su Mu's bad temper, She won't have anything to do with him. Yi Hui leaned against the sofa in a daze and said softly, "Actually, it's nothing. There's no movement in the photo either." However, when he looked at Su Mu, his eyes were filled with nostalgia and heartache. He just said that he still liked Su Mu. It was really nothing. Yi Hui wanted to cry again. Yi Xiangnan had a headache. Now, he had to deal with it again, or rather, he had to clean up the mess for the two of them. On the other hand, he had to comfort his sister. When Shen Wenshuan found Yi Hui, it was 2 hours later. Yi Hui was asleep. Yi Xiangnan carried her to the lounge and called Shen Wenshuan to take her away. Shen Wenshuan walked into the lounge and saw Yi Hui lying on the bed with her head on a snow-white pillow. Her black hair covered most of her small face. She was really beautiful. At first glance, it made people feel as if the ice and snow had melted. He thought that the reason why he decided to be with her was partly because of her good character, and partly because she was very beautiful. In the past, Shen Wenshuan never knew that he liked beautiful girls. Chapter 5078. Memorize, 69 books. Yi Hui was carried back to his private office. Shen Wenshuan was now the head of the legal team and had an extremely luxurious private office. He carefully carried Yi Hui to the lounge. He sat on the side of the bed, quietly watching over her. Yi Hui must have cried herself to sleep. The corners of her eyes were full of tears. However, she was really silly and kind. She didn't want to go back even after crying like that. She was afraid that her parents would ask. Shen Wenshuan's voice was low and deep. "What's so good about me that I'm worth you doing this?" With Yi Hui's conditions, she could easily find a man who matched her family background. It wasn't like she didn't know anything. Yi Hui's education was very high, and her piano skills were no worse than Wen Yuan's. She was a pampered princess, but in the end, she chose him. If she wasn't so good, if she was a little fierce and not so kind, he would probably be willing to hurt her. Yes, he used to want to use her as a threat, but now, she made his heart ache and he couldn't bear to let her go. When Yi Hui woke up, it was already 2 hours later. When she opened her eyes, she saw Shen Wenshuan's enlarged face. He was sitting by the bed. Yi Hui's face immediately turned away, as if she didn't want to talk to him. Shen Wenshuan was a little distressed, but at the same time, he found it a little funny. Yi Hui's personality was really like her. At this time, shouldn't she slap him twice and call him a scum? Did he cheat her feelings? However, she didn't. It seemed that besides crying, she was angry. She might even be angry at herself. However, he didn't think that she was weak at all. Instead, he thought that she was very cute. Su Mu was cute because of this. Whatever he did, he would make others feel that he was cute. She was really a very well-raised and very pure girl, but she wasn't stupid. She was just specifically kind. Shen Wenshuan touched her face and said softly, "Are you still angry?" Yi Hui slapped his hand away. She was obviously angry. "No." These 4 words were said insincerely. Then, she turned her back and ignored him. However, she soon found that he came closer. It was rare for Yi Hui to get angry. She stretched out her hand and gave him a slap. She didn't use much strength and slapped his face. The sound of a slap was crisp and clear. Shen Wenshuan had never seen her like this before. It didn't hurt much when she was hit on the face. He touched his face and smiled. "If you're still angry, hit me a few more times." Yi Hui was not stupid. She could tell from his tone that he was teasing her, so she was even more unwilling to hit him. Hitting was also touching. He had said those words, and now he was still doing this. Yi Hui felt that she couldn't easily forgive him. She remembered that Shen Wenshuan had reached out to stop her. "Are you really angry? Are you going to ignore me from now on?" "I don't care anymore." Yi Funshi hung her head dejectedly. As for why he was ignoring her, she didn't say anything. She also stubbornly refused to ask about the matter between him and Su Mu. The more she didn't say or ask, the more his heart ached. Yi Hui was really a little fool, but even if she didn't say it, he still had to say it. Yi Hui and Su Mu had to meet eventually. Not to mention that Yi Hui would always feel uncomfortable when they met each other in the future, Sumu would feel even more uncomfortable. He sighed and told her about the matter of Sumu's family. When he finished, he saw Yi Hui sitting on the bed with a somewhat dazed expression. He reached out and pulled her face. He asked softly, "What's wrong?" Yi Hui lowered her head. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly. After a while, she said in a low voice, "Am I particularly willful?" Chapter 5079. Yi Hui lowered her head, and her long eyelashes trembled. After a while, she said in a low voice, "Am I very willful?" As she said that, she looked up at him. Shun Wenshuan didn't expect that she would say this after a long time. He sighed softly and said, "Yi Hui, what do you want me to say?" She didn't understand what he meant, but it was good that he knew. Later, he coaxed her. It was not the way a man coaxed a woman, but the way an adult coaxed a child. Later, Yi Hui was not angry with him anymore. Instead, she felt sorry for Sumu. Shun Wenshuan sighed. It was not easy for the Yi family to raise a child like Yi Hui. It should be known that Yi Xiangnan had a very bad temper and a deep mind. It was very difficult to deal with him. Otherwise, how could he develop Starlight into one of the biggest companies in the world? On the other side, Yi Xiangnan had a headache. After a long time, he finally suppressed all the things. Next, he had to find out where the photo came from and who took it. At this time, the person who took the photo was very proud. Su Jian picked up Wang Yuanke and took the check. She said to Wang Yuanke carefully, "Mom, look, this is 2 million. Wang Yuanke came out of the police station with a face full of dust. Now she dreamed of making money. Looking at the check, her eyes lit up. "Jian, where did you get this? How did you get so much money? Tell me quickly." Su Jian refused to say it. Wang Yuanke looked at her suspiciously and said in a sharp voice, "Jian, don't tell me you sold yourself." Su Jian still didn't speak. Wang Yuanke was about to go crazy. She reached out and shook Su Jian fiercely. "I only have you as my precious daughter. How can you live with a mother?" Su Jian couldn't stand her. She rolled her eyes and said, "Mom, calm down." "How can I calm down? You sold yourself. How can I calm down?" Wang Yuanke was about to go crazy. Su Jian really couldn't stand her anymore. She quickly said, "Mom, you don't need to use your brain to think about it. Even if I sell it, I can sell it for 2 million. You think too highly of me. Can I say that I'm missing 12 words here?" Wang Yuanke immediately came to life. She tidied her hair and asked, "Then where did the money come from? Tell mommy." Su Jian didn't want to talk about it. At this time, Su Shaoqing suddenly walked over and took the check from their hands. In a cold voice, he said, "Sister took a photo of Big Sister and Shun Wenshuan and caused a lot of trouble for Big Sister. In the future, Big Sister and Cymbidium Chinense will have a hard time." Wang Yuanke was stunned for a moment. After a while, she looked at her daughter and asked softly, "Did you take a photo of Sumu's Shun Wenshuan?" Su Jian's expression was cautious. She was afraid that her mother would scold her. Unexpectedly, Wang Yuanke snatched the check from Su Shaoqing's hands and kissed it. "Baby, you are really capable. Why didn't you ask for more? That kind of photo is at least 10 million. You can ask the Yi family for it. The Yi family is rich." Su Jian felt that she was already very ruthless. She didn't expect her mother to be even more ruthless. Su Shaoqing couldn't stand it anymore. He shouted, "Mom, how can you treat Big Sister like this? If that kind of photo is released, how can Big Sister raise her head in the Yi family?" Chapter 5080. Wang Yuanke's expression changed and she said coldly, "Who's your big sister?" "Sumu. The Yi family didn't want her for a long time. What a joke. If she had listened to me and made more money, she wouldn't be in such dire straits. At that time, she was willing to give the Cymbidium Chinense to the Yi family for at least 100 million. Now, she got married for nothing and left the Yi family with nothing. I didn't give birth to such a brainless daughter. Our Jian is so capable." She beamed with joy, thinking that the matter was settled. She would bring Da Chong out of the hospital later. Su Shaoqing was only 16 years old. After hearing that, he was especially angry. Mom, big sister is already working hard. Our house. What big sister? Wang Yuenka's expression was frightening. How is she your big sister? You are the real siblings. She, Su Mu, is the son of that bastard Su Daqiang. You are not the same as her. Probably because she was too agitated, Wang Yuenka actually said the truth. After saying it, she regretted it. Then, she looked at her children and said, "Pretend you didn't hear what was said just now. I don't want anyone who says it. Do you understand?" Both of her children stared at her with an indescribable expression. Wang Yuenka was so angry that she snorted. "Did you hear that? This is not a joke. If Su Mu finds out about it, she won't care about you anymore." Su Shaoqing clenched his hands. His eyes were filled with anger. But he was too small and weak. There was nothing he could do. Su Jian was 20 years old. Her mind was more active. She asked softly, "Mom, did you give birth to Su Mu?" Wang Yuenka looked at her. "Of course I gave birth to her. If not me, who gave birth to her? I can even bring her up." Su Jian asked again, "Mom, why don't you like her?" "Because she is Su Qiong's daughter. I can't stand it when I think about it." Wang Yuenka said distractedly, "If it wasn't because I wanted to give you two a complete family, I wouldn't have wanted that man a long time ago." Su Jian finally understood why Mom didn't like Su Mu, and why Mom treated them differently. It turned out that only big sister was Dad's biological daughter. After all, Dad doted on her, and his biological daughter suffered the most. It was really ironic. However, she also understood why she and Shaoqing were prettier, while big sister was plain. It turned out that they didn't have the same father. To think that she felt guilty before, but now that she thought about it, it was really unnecessary. However, her mother had hidden it from her father for so many years and still treated her father's biological daughter like this. This woman's heart was really cruel. Su Jian's heart was still full of expectations. With her mother's beauty, she and Shaoqing's father might be a rich man. In the future, when they recognized their ancestors, their identities would naturally be different. When she asked this, Wang Yuenka's face turned a little ugly. After a long time, she said, "Why are you asking this?" "There's nothing to ask." Su Jian asked again. Wang Yuenka had already said a lot today, and it seemed like she didn't care about saying anything more. She lightly snorted, "Your father met him while playing cards. He's really good looking, but he owes a lot of debt and ran away. So don't think about looking for that dead man. Just pretend that he's dead." Su Jian was very, very disappointed, but there was nothing she could do. Her biological father was also a low-class person, so the gaze she gave Wang Yuenka was a little disdainful. It had to be said that this mother and daughter were very similar, which also meant that Su Daqiang's genes were better than that dead man's. Otherwise, why didn't Su Mu grow up crooked? Chapter 5081. Updated quickly, Starlight Headquarters. Yi Xiangnan sat in his office, looking dignified. He held a document in his hand. He lowered his head and read it quietly. Then, he looked up. Secretary Li looked serious. As if she knew what her boss was going to ask, she said softly, "The source of this information is reliable. That is to say, Miss Su's family sold these two photos for 2 million. She sympathized with Su Mu. After all, this kind of thing was hurtful to everyone. Su Mu's family was really ruthless. For the sake of money, they pushed Su Mu into an embarrassing situation again and again. This time, they were really crazy." Before Yi Xiangnan could continue, Secretary Li continued. "Now, we have suppressed all the topics and directions, and we have spread some positive news. However, this kind of thing would probably not be easily forgotten by others. How explosive was the gossip of a wealthy family? It might not affect Shen Wenshuan much. After all, he was a man and had a high status. But it was different for Su Mu." Yi Xiangnan took out a cigarette, held it with his slender fingers, and lit it. Secretary Li looked at him and didn't say anything for a long time. Yi Xiangnan looked at her and smiled. "What's wrong?" Secretary Li shook her head. "Nothing. I just think that Miss Su will have a hard time in the future." "Really?" Yi Xiangnan smiled again. Why don't I think so? Wasn't Su Mu a person of integrity? Why didn't she call him when she was already at the police station? He remembered that he had told her that she could look for him if she needed help. He had also offered very good conditions, but she didn't seem to care at all. Shen Wenshuan went to look for her first. Even though nothing had happened between them, this tacit understanding was enough to make him feel uncomfortable. He was completely not in her heart. If Shen Wenshuan hadn't been with Yi Hui, this incident would probably have catalyzed their reunion. Reunion? Yi Xiangnan smiled silently, and it was quite a sarcastic smile. Secretary Li looked at his expression and asked carefully, then, CEO Yi, do you want to help Miss Su deal with this matter? Yi Xiangnan smoked quietly and looked at her. Secretary Li immediately understood and didn't dare to make another sound. This dog man. How ruthless. If she were Su Mu, she would also choose the gentle and considerate lawyer Shen. However, Secretary Li smiled and said, I understand. CEO Yi, I'll be going now. Yi Xiangnan stopped her. Secretary Li's heart skipped a beat. Yi Xiangnan's gaze fell on her face quietly, and his voice was soft. You know what to do. I don't need to tell you again, right? Secretary Li cursed again in his heart. Dogman, this is simply, but on the surface, he squeezed out a smile. Of course, CEO Yi doesn't need to say anything. I understand. Was he unwilling to give up on Su Mu? She really didn't understand CEO Yi now. So many beautiful women were waiting for him. He wasn't a monk. Why wasn't he interested in women now? Instead, he kept staring at Su Mu. Just because she gave birth to a son, didn't the entertainment industry have a few sons now? Did he have to be so persistent? Secretary Li returned to her office and secretly sent a message to Su Mu. CEO Yi is quite angry. It's not convenient for me to see you these days. I'm sorry, Su Mu. On the other side, Su Mu must be very upset. And it wasn't just psychological. Now, even if she wanted to go out, she would be pointed at and talked about. She had suddenly turned from a pitiful target to a bad woman who seduced her brother-in-law. Chapter 5082. Secretary Li thought that this time, Su Mu would probably lower her head, but after waiting for a while, she got a few words from Su Mu. I'm fine. Secretary Li sighed. How could she be fine? In her position, she couldn't say anything, but she still secretly transferred 100,000 yuan to Su Mu for her emergency use. Su Mu didn't accept it, but sent 2 words of thanks. This time, Secretary Li really couldn't say anything, but she didn't know that this matter was also known by her boss Yi, but he didn't say it, and didn't embarrass her for the time being. On the other side, Su Mu was trapped in her own home. She really didn't expect that she would be sold by her family again, in a worse way than the last time. The downstairs of the old apartment was full of reporters, and people going in and out would also look at her strangely. Later, Su Mu's reputation slowly spread. When Su Mu went out to buy vegetables, she would be pointed at. Fortunately, she didn't have to go to Yi Xiangnan's villa now, or it would be even worse. Her mobile phone rang, and she saw that it was Su Jian's phone call. Su Mu thought about it and picked it up. There was not much expression on her face. Su Jian cried there, sister, please save us, they said they were going to take me. Su Mu's voice was very soft. Jian, did you take my photos and sell them to others? At this time, Su Jian was not in the mood to discuss this with her. She shrank behind the sofa at home and begged, sister, I beg you, please beg Mr. Yi, please beg him to save our family. We are all going to die. In just a few days, 2 million yuan has rolled to 6 million yuan. One of Dad's legs has been broken, completely broken. Mom has also been taken away by them. Mom, they said Mom is very beautiful. Sister, they also said that I will be the next one. Sister, I'm so scared. Please save us. Think about how we are not good at ordinary times. Mom is not good to you. And Xiaoqing likes you the most. Do you have the heart to let us die together? Su Mu listened to these almost numbly. She was really numb. After listening quietly, she let out a long breath and said very softly, Jian, how do you want me to save you? I have lost my reputation now, and I have nothing. I am just a bad woman to seduce my brother-in-law outside. When you took the photos, did you think about me? Did you think about leaving a way out for me? Did you think about leaving some face for Cymbidium chinense? Su Jian took a breath and murmured, Isn't Mr. Yi omnipotent? He will settle it. He's so rich. Sister, please go and beg him. He'll definitely help us solve this problem. Sister, I'm begging you. If you don't go, our family will die. Su Mu said softly, then sell the house. No. Where will Mom and I live after selling the house? I don't want to live the previous life. Su Jian's reaction was particularly fierce. Su Mu really didn't understand. They were going to die, what would those people do? Why didn't they sell the house? Su Jian said softly, Why do we have to pay for Dad's mistake? Sis, if it wasn't for his fault, I wouldn't have taken your photo, and you wouldn't have lost your reputation. Don't you think so? Su Mu was in a desperate situation at this time, but she was still angry and laughed. She said softly, Jian, what did Mom teach you all these years? Chapter 5083. Updated quickly. Su Mu was in a desperate situation at this time, but she was so angry that she laughed. She said softly, Jian, what has Mom taught you all these years? Mom. Yes, sis, Mom is your biological mother, and Dad is your biological father. If you don't care about them, who will care about them? I don't care, I'm going to take Xiaoqing out to hide for a few days. I'll leave the family matters to you. You're the eldest sister, you should take care of them, right? I've been taking care of them for so long, it's time for you to take care of them. Su Jian hung up the phone after she finished speaking, and then took away all the remaining money in the house, wanting to leave with Su Xiaoqing. Su Xiaoqing, a 16-year-old boy, stood there with fire in his eyes. Su Jian hurriedly opened the door. Why aren't you leaving? Are you waiting for someone to deal with us? Su Xiaoqing still didn't move. Su Jian gritted her teeth. You still have eldest sister in your heart, don't you? Are you mistaken? She doesn't have the same father as us, and she won't be close to us. Do you remember how many times she's been nice to us since she was young? Su Xiaoqing said coldly, That's because Mom doesn't treat her well. Sis is very depressed at home. The young boy would always remember how his eldest sister looked when she was pregnant and was driven out by his mother. She was embarrassed and pitiful. He was small and weak, so he couldn't say loudly that he would take care of her. He secretly went to see his eldest sister and stuffed a few $100 under the pillow in the hospital. His eldest sister always thought that the money was from his father, so let it be from his father, as long as his eldest sister felt better. At this time, Su Xiaoqing felt that it wasn't that his mother didn't treat his eldest sister well, but that his mother didn't treat her as a human at all. She was just a tool. Even a stepmother wouldn't be like this. He said resolutely, I'm not leaving. Su Jian found it unbelievable. You're not leaving? Su Xiaoqing, is your brain broken? If you don't leave, are you going to wait for those people to come and catch you? We can look for the police. Su Xiaoqing said more firmly. We can't look for eldest sister for this matter. Su Jian was so angry that she laughed. Good, good, good. You always talk about big sister. It seems that I, your sister, have no weight in your heart. Su Xiaoqing, take care. She said with a bit of viciousness, if your legs are broken, don't cry and beg me. As she spoke, she opened the door and froze. A fierce man stood at the door. He was dressed in expensive clothes, but he didn't look noble at all. Instead, he looked like a bandit. Moreover, he was extremely tall, and his entire body felt like it was filled with muscles. Su Jian looked up and saw a good-looking face. That face was really good-looking. And his hands. If he wanted to pinch a woman to death, it would be as easy as pinching a little chick to death. Just as she was thinking, the man's hand had already grabbed her neck as if he was really holding a chick. Where is Su Mu? Su Jian was scared out of her wits. Her body was lifted up. She coughed violently and struggled with all her might, but it was useless. The man held her in midair. Su Jian coughed violently and pointed at a spot. She's not here. The man immediately threw her down, and she fell heavily to the ground. The man was about to leave when he suddenly turned around and lifted Su Jian up. He pinched her little face and looked at it. Su Jian's heart was beating very fast. She was afraid and expectant at the same time. She felt that this man was very rich, and he was very tall and handsome. His entire body was filled with a fierce manly aura. Chapter 5084. Memorize. The man finally said, "Not bad." As he spoke, he carried her into a random room and slammed the door shut. More than a dozen of his men were guarding outside. No matter how loud the people inside cried or how Su Shaoqing beat them, it was of no use. An hour later, the man came out. His subordinates respectfully handed him a towel. "Master Cheng, wipe your hands." The man took a towel and wiped it casually. He smiled nonchalantly. "Bring this woman with you later." I really didn't expect Su Mu's younger sister to be so, only 20 years old, and she doesn't have any innocence at all. He couldn't help but think of Su Mu's indifferent face. In the past, he only felt that she looked like a little teacher when she kept a straight face. Now that he had read so many gossip magazines, he knew that she was cold, indifferent. If it was ugly, then so be it. There was also his professional term for squinting. In short, although it was a little ugly, it was able to pique his interest. One of them was quite pretty, but she was only compatible with Nuanuan. Her personality was too flattering. He hadn't used any tricks, but she was very proactive. She even suggested that she wanted to learn from him. She didn't even have to go to class. Cheng Zheng would never refuse a woman who threw herself at him. However, there was something good about this woman. She looked like Su Mu. Just now, he could imagine that she was Su Mu. Master Cheng stretched himself and chuckled. "That's great." However, after a while, his face darkened again. When he was young, he liked Su Mu, but she was kicked out of the house by Wang Yuanke. He treated Su Mu as a treasure, but Su Mu only liked Shen Wenshuan, the gigolo. He thought that she would spend the rest of her life with that guy, but after he came back, he found out that she had a child with a better-looking and richer gigolo, and was recently kicked out of the house. Master Cheng snapped his fingers and looked at his men. "Where is Su Mu?" "He's not here yet." Her mother and sister had suffered for such a long time, but this woman was really able to keep her composure. At this time, Su Jian came out of the bedroom. She looked more feminine than before. She carefully walked to Master Cheng's side and served him like those women on TV. Master Cheng turned his head to look at her, but didn't say anything. He still didn't refuse or take the initiative. Su Jian said softly, "Master, can my mother come back? And my father, is your body that valuable?" Master Cheng's fan-like hand took out a cigarette, lit it, and looked at her. Su Jian was quite embarrassed. She was not shy, but she was looked down upon in front of others. How was she worthless? She was only 20 years old, young and beautiful. What she didn't understand was how this man could fall in love with Su Mu. Just now, he kept pinching her little face and calling Su Mu's name. He must be crazy. However, the manly smell on his body was very attractive to Su Jian. Such a man was also a dragon among men. Looking at his style, she could tell that he was especially rich. It was not bad for her to be with him. At least, she didn't have to worry about not being able to have anything she wanted. Su Jian was really taught badly by Wang Yuanke. Her 3 views were extremely wrong. She didn't care that Su Shaoqing was by her side and kept trying to please Master Cheng. She didn't care whether Master Cheng liked Su Mu or not. She just wanted this man to be by her side. As for Su Mu, she knew very well that her bad temper would probably cause trouble. How could she let Master Cheng succeed? Chapter 5085. Updated quickly. However, Su Jian was really wrong. Master Cheng liked Su Mu, but he wasn't prepared to get serious with Su Mu all of a sudden. He still wanted to take it slow. He placed his achievements over the years in front of Su Mu, gave her a lot of money, and fawned on her to let her know that he wasn't any worse than Shen Wenxian, and he wasn't any worse than the CEO of Stars Entertainment. A grown man who went in and out with female celebrities all day long, How good could he be? Su Mu's looks weren't good enough. How could she hold the heart of such a man? He was different. As long as Su Mu was willing to be with him, he could throw away all the women around him. He could throw them wherever he wanted, including this slut. At this moment, the door was pushed open. Wang Yuanke ran in with disheveled hair. She was stunned when she saw the scene in the house. After a while, her gaze fell on her daughter. Her gaze was a little straight. As a person, she could see that Jian was different. As for what was different, everyone here knew. There were so many people. Wang Yuanke let out a shrill voice. Jian, are you crazy? Why are you following such a hooligan? Those subordinates weren't too happy. Hooligan? Their Master Cheng was a hooligan? Without waiting for Master Cheng's instructions, two subordinates immediately came over and beat Wang Yuanke up to the point that her mother wouldn't be able to recognize her. This woman had to be beaten. Only after being beaten would she be honest. Wang Yuanke was still in a daze. After a while, she muttered, "Crazy, you're all crazy. How did Jian's mother usually teach you?" Su Jian's face was as if it was a matter of course. "Didn't you always tell me to find a rich man? Didn't I find one now? Why are you unhappy?" Wang Yuanke muttered again, "I think you're really crazy. How did Jian's mother teach you? How can such a hooligan be worthy of you?" Su Jian was really a little anxious. She jumped up and down. "Mom, how can you say that? Master Cheng's business is very big." No matter how big it was not a serious business. Wang Yuanke suddenly recognized the man in front of her. It was that rascal. He liked Su Mu and was chased out by her back then. She hadn't seen him for a few years. He broke Su Qiong's leg and even did Ji Yang. Wang Yuanke wanted to kick Cheng Jing out again, but the current Master Cheng was no longer the poor boy from before. With just a glance, he had his subordinates drag Wang Yuanke to the side. He looked very pathetic. Master Cheng straightened his clothes and said in a dignified manner, "I won't argue with you today. I'm taking this woman away." Su Jian very obediently said thank you Master Cheng, coaxing that ruthless man to actually be a bit happy. His fingers gently pinched her chin, looked at her for a while, and smiled. "I can't tell that after not seeing you for a few years, you've grown up." In the past, she was quite delicate and always looked at him with disdain. But now, she was as obedient as a little wild cat. Just thinking about it made Master Cheng feel a sense of satisfaction. He was rich, very rich. His family was very rich, but it was still not as good as Shen Wenshuan's scholarly family, and he didn't have a noble education like Yi Xiangnan's. He was just a rich and rough man. In his bones, he felt that he liked Su Mu, but he didn't need to keep his chastity. He was a man. The more women he had, the more sense of accomplishment he would feel. However, there weren't too many women around Master Cheng. He was too busy. This time, other than wanting to meet Su Mu again, he had other things to do when he returned to B City. Chapter 5086. Updated quickly. Just as Master Cheng was about to take Su Jian away, Wang Yuanke started wailing. She knew very well that a man like Master Cheng wouldn't get serious with a woman. Even Su Mu couldn't calm down when she was young. If Su Mu pounced on him, Master Cheng would be sick of her in less than a month. Men were like that. The harder it was to get, the more precious they would be. Once they got it, it would be boring after a few days. Only a fool would want to be with a man with such a bad reputation. But the arm couldn't beat the leg. No matter how Wang Yuanke cried, Master Cheng still had to take her away. When the door opened, Su Mu stood at the door. Master Cheng's eyes widened. He hadn't seen Su Mu for so many years. She seemed different. She was a little more feminine. Although his face was still stiff and he always looked like a little old-fashioned person, he looked different now. Master Cheng suspected that it was Yi Xiannan's effect. After all, she had been at Yi Xiannan's place for the past few days. Master Cheng didn't believe that the gigolo wouldn't touch Su Mu. If that gigolo was really Liu Xiaohui, why would he have a son? Thinking about this, Master Cheng's heart turned cold. He didn't know how many times the goddess in his heart had been touched by Yi Xiangnan. Even though he was angry, he immediately threw Su Jian, who was hanging on his body, to the side. Then, he tried to please her. "Su Mu, it's been so many years." His subordinates felt that their boss was biting off more than he could chew. He was so arrogant in front of them, but he didn't respect that woman at all. He did whatever he wanted. With this comparison, his subordinates understood. This time, the one who appeared was the real sister-in-law. That Su Jian was just a plaything to their boss. He didn't take her seriously. Su Mu looked at Master Cheng and said softly, "What do you want?" At this moment, Su Jian was unwilling to give up. She leaned over again and said in a sweet voice, "Master Cheng said that he'll let our family go and treat Dad." As soon as she finished speaking, Master Cheng pushed her away with a dark expression. "What do you mean by treating your father? I didn't say that I don't want the money, but I can't get my broken leg back." As he spoke, he looked at Su Mu. "This can also make him change, don't you think? I remember that he didn't treat you very well. He always gambled outside and didn't come home. Su Mu, do you feel especially good now?" Su Mu didn't even look at him. She was also a woman, so she immediately understood what had happened to Su Jian. Her gaze was somewhat meaningful. Master Cheng understood. Master Cheng rubbed his nose and said embarrassedly, "Don't wrongly accuse me. She did it willingly. Besides, she's not some little girl. She's usually very messy." Su Jian was put on the spot, but she didn't dare to provoke Master Cheng, so she could only lower her head. It had to be said that she had met her nemesis. At this moment, Wang Yuan seemed to have found her savior. She rushed over and hugged Su Mu and shook her violently. "Su Beimu, Mu Mu, hurry up and save your sister. She's still so young and ignorant. She can't be with such a man." Su Mu's gaze was very light. "Young and ignorant." She smiled bitterly. "Ignorant and took photos of me. If you sell them, my reputation will be ruined. Also, Mom, how do you want me to save her? You should be close to this Mr. Cheng. He really likes you. If you are with him, your sister will give up. Su Mu's mother, please help her." Wang Yuanka said with tears streaming down her face. She looked quite pitiful. Chapter 5087. Updated quickly, however, Su Mu felt sad. She didn't know if it was for herself or for Wang Yuanka. In her eyes, Wang Yuanka was even crazier than Su Qiong. She laughed softly, and it was a bitter laugh. At this moment, Master Cheng laughed as well, and said in agreement, "Good idea." Su Jian's face changed. She was clearly much prettier than Su Mu, and even had a good relationship with Master Cheng. How could he turn against her just like that? She wanted to say something, but Master Cheng pushed her to the side. "Do you have the right to speak?" Su Jian gritted her teeth and stood at the side, not saying a word. Su Mu felt that it was ridiculous. She looked at Wang Yuanka. "You saw it too. She did it willingly. She can't blame anyone else." If she had any sympathy for Su Jian in the past, it was gone now. It was the same for Wang Yuanka. The pitiful mother-daughter relationship was gone in an instant. She turned around and left. Wang Yuanka's lips moved, wanting to call out to her, but she didn't say the last word. Su Shaoqing called out to her in a soft voice. "Sis." Su Mu turned around and looked at her brother. Shaoqing had been especially obedient since he was young. However, because of Wang Yuanka's discipline, he didn't spend much time with Su Mu. At this moment, Su Shaoqing walked over and asked firmly, "Sis, can you take me with you?" His question almost drove Wang Yuanka crazy. Her voice was extremely shrill. "Shaoqing, you're crazy. What can you do with her?" Su Shaoqing looked at Su Mu pitifully and passionately. Su Mu couldn't bear it. She reached out and gently patted his little head. She hesitated for a moment before asking, "Shaoqing, are you sure?" Su Shaoqing nodded his head. Su Mu pursed her lips and finally said a word. Wang Yuanka was about to go crazy again, but Master Cheng gave her a tight slap. He was especially impolite. "Isn't it good to follow Su Mu? Don't tell me she should follow a lowly thing like you." Wang Yuan was a pitiful woman. She had always been a strong-willed woman. In the past, this mistress was swept out of the house by her with a broom. Su Qiong was also usually pinched and played with by her. However, when she was slapped down by Master Cheng, her face was swollen. One moment, she felt blood in her mouth, and when she spat it out, it was actually a tooth. Master Cheng is too bloody facepalm. Su Jian was also stunned. She looked at her mother, unable to speak for a long time. She also wanted to plead with Master Cheng, but thinking that her face wasn't that big, she swallowed it back down. Master Cheng was particularly tough. He threw Wang Yuanke aside and smiled at Su Mu. Now you can take whoever you want with you. This spring breeze-like expression was completely different from before. Su Jian was very angry. She wanted to flare up, but when she thought of Master Cheng's strong physique, she blushed and was afraid. In the end, she actually moved behind Master Cheng with a bashful expression. There were many women like this. Master Cheng didn't have eyes to look at her. Back then, he was willing to do it because she looked a little like Su Mu. He just wanted to have a taste. Who knew that this woman would be so soft and cheap, actually pestering him? Her family was already like this, but she still had the heart to care for a man. Master Cheng was also very convinced. In the chaos, Su Mu brought Su Shaoqing to pack up. Wang Yuanke went to stop them, but Master Cheng kicked her over. Haven't you suffered enough? Did my brothers not serve you well? Wang Yuanke swallowed a mouthful of blood. She watched as her precious son, her only hope, left with that disappointing Su Mu. Her eyes darkened and she actually fainted. Chapter 5088. Mima Ai's mom. Su Jian screamed as if she was putting on a show. Wang Yuanke lay there stiffly, motionless. After Master Cheng sent Su Mu off, he came back and frowned at the woman. He asked one of his men to throw her into the hospital, and he took Su Jian back to his big villa. Although she wasn't Su Mu, just the thought of her being Su Mu's younger sister made Master Cheng's heart especially want to conquer her. Su Jian followed Master Cheng to his big villa. When she got there, she found out that she wasn't the only woman in the villa. There were several other women in the villa. However, Master Cheng didn't like them very much, so he kept them for fun. Master Cheng was still very new to the Su family's daughter. For a few days, he doted on Su Jian. Su Jian even used her skills to act coquettishly. Sometimes, Master Cheng was also very happy. Master Cheng's business was big and he had a bad temper. When he was happy, he treated Su Jian like a precious baby. He would throw jewelry on the ground for her to pick up at any time. When he was unhappy, he would kick it. No matter how painful it was, Su Jian had to endure it. She couldn't let this man get tired of her. Usually, he was like a tyrant, but in front of Master Cheng, he was as docile as a little lamb. Master Cheng was just a little tired of it for a few days, but it was a pity to throw it away. He hadn't won Su Mu's heart for the time being. In his heart, Su Mu was like a piece of jade. As for Su Jian, she was just playing around. Su Jian could feel that Master Cheng was not paying attention. It was useless even if she gritted her teeth and acted coquettishly to please him. If things did not go her way, she would kick him. On the other side, in the hospital, Su Qiong and Wang Yuanke were both lying on the ground. After surviving a disaster, Wang Yuanke was no different from being dead. His precious daughter was following him around, and his precious son was following Su Mu. What else did she have? She had nothing, nothing at all. Wang Yuanke was lying there like she was dead. Su Shaoqing still came over to see her. He called her mother softly. Wang Yuanke turned her head and looked at him. "Where's your sister?" Su Shaoqing knew he was talking about Su Jian. He angrily threw a stack of money on the bed. "She gave it to me." Wang Yuanke loved money the most, but now, she didn't feel it when she saw the money. She just laid there and groaned. Su was a young boy, so he didn't know how to comfort her. After staying here for a while, he went to Su Qiong's ward, I think is called Su Daqiang. One of Su Qiong's legs was crippled and he was lying there softly. No matter how much money he spent, he would only have one leg. Su Mu had been taking care of him for a few days. Su Shaoqing's mood was the most complicated, because he knew that he was not Su Qiong's biological son, and Su Qiong was such a troublemaker. He was only 16 years old, so naturally, His thoughts were simple and almost couldn't be concealed. Even a heartless person like Su Chong could see that this young boy was different. Su endured the pain in her leg and asked him what was wrong. Her tone was rather concerned. Su Shaoqing hated him and pitied him for not knowing anything. In the end, he turned around and left. Outside the ward, he pounded on the wall and cried. He cried very sadly. Su Mu happened to come over and looked at him quietly. After a long time, she gently patted Su Shaoqing's shoulder. What's wrong? After all, he was a child and couldn't hide things in his heart. He turned his head and looked at Su Mu, still crying. Big sister, Mom, said that second sister and I are not Dad's children. I feel very sad when I see Dad now. Big sister, why is our family like this? Chapter 5089. Su Mu was shocked, but he didn't seem that shocked. She looked at the crying Su Shaoqing quietly and comforted him softly. Su Shaoqing threw himself into her arms and cried sadly. Su Mu couldn't do anything about it. Their family seemed to have fallen into a whirlpool. No one was happy. Now, all she could give Shaoqing was a little warmth and simple care. However, she also felt that it was not suitable for Shaoqing to stay in that family for a long time. Su Jian was the best example. When Su Mu brought Su Shaoqing home, she quietly helped him clean up a room. In fact, there was nothing extra. It was the same room that Cymbidium Chinense used to live in. Cymbidium Chinense didn't live here anymore, so it was just right for Su Shaoqing to live in. Su Shaoqing's grades in school were very good. In addition, it was an ordinary school, so it wasn't too difficult for Su Mu to take care of him. After cleaning up and going downstairs, Cymbidium Chinense called. Her voice was soft. Mom, you haven't come to see Cymbidium Chinense for a long time. Su Mu just remembered that she hadn't seen the little guy for a long time. She felt a little guilty and said softly, Mom will come to see you one day. With Su Shaoqing around, it was a little inconvenient for her. After all, she was 16 years old and needed someone to take care of her. However, Su Shaoqing was very sensible. Sister, you go. I can do it alone. Su Mu looked at him. You can do it. Su Shaoqing nodded. I'm fine. Su Mu made lunch for him and ate a little for herself. She went to Yi Xiangnan's villa. She didn't want to cause trouble, so she was very low-key. Cymbidium Chinense didn't have class today. He was in good health, so he was a little delicate. When he saw Su Mu coming over, he said in a soft voice, Mom. Su Mu went over to give him a hug. The little guy lay in his arms, smelling his mother's scent. He was especially clingy, like a little clingy spirit. Su Mu was actually a little touched. At least this time, the Cymbidium Chinense was not hurt. The Yi family had protected the Cymbidium Chinense well. She accompanied the Cymbidium Chinense for the whole afternoon. At 6 o'clock in the evening, she calculated that Yi Xiangnan would be back soon, so she was ready to leave. She insisted on having dinner with Auntie Chen. She didn't want to see Yi Xiangnan. If she saw him, she would definitely have a lot of unpleasant things to say. Su Mu was a very practical person. She already had a plan in her heart. After so many things had happened, she knew in her heart that a family like hers was destined to be inseparable, unless she didn't care about her age. However, the existence of a mother like her was not good for Cymbidium Chinense. Sometimes it was too hard for people to live, and Su Mu didn't even have the right to complain. For example, when she knew that her mother had given birth to 2 children for others, she should have been very angry and sad, but Su Mu didn't feel anything at all. Maybe she was used to being abused. Today, looking at the soft appearance of the Cymbidium Chinense, she actually felt a little lucky. It was indeed better for the Cymbidium Chinense to follow Yi Xiangnan. At least it was very stable. At least he could protect it and it wouldn't grow up in an unbearable environment. When Su Mu was about to leave, the Cymbidium Chinense was also a little reluctant. She didn't know whether it was because the child was more sensitive, but he could actually feel that there was something wrong with his mother, as if she had made a decision. When Su Mu was about to leave, the Cymbidium Chinense hugged her leg and looked up at her. It looked very pitiful. Su Mu's heart was a little broken. After all, it was a child that she had given birth to and raised. However, She understood that it was the best for the Cymbidium chinense now. Chapter 5090. How ridiculous and overconfident were her previous thoughts. She comforted Cymbidium chinense for a while and then gestured for Auntie Chen to hug Cymbidium chinense. In fact, all the servants in the family knew about what had happened to Shen Wenshuan. Auntie Chen trusted Su Mu. Madam wouldn't do that. If Madam was vain, she wouldn't have refused to stay. Looking at the scene of mother and son being separated, how heartbreaking was that? But no matter what, Su Mu still left. She didn't feel good when she walked out. The night was cold. She pulled her coat and was about to walk out when the black carved door suddenly opened. Then, the car lights came on. She squinted and saw that Yi Xiangnan's car had come back. Yi Xiangnan closed the door and walked towards her. Su Mu didn't know what was going on. She instinctively wanted to run, but she was grabbed by an arm. Then, she was thrown to the car, and a warm body leaned over, trapping her between the car and him. Yi Xiangnan smoked, so there was a faint smell of tobacco on him. This smell was very confusing to women, and even Su Mu couldn't stand it. She looked down and said in a low voice, "Let go of me." Yi Xiangnan's voice was hoarse. "Don't you have anything to say to me? Don't you have anything to explain?" She looked up and said, "What? What?" Yi Xiangnan gritted his teeth. "You damn woman, how dare you ask me why?" He held a cigarette in one hand and opened the car door with the other, throwing Su Mu in. It was dark and cramped in the car, and the temperature was much higher than outside. Su Mu threw herself in, and then the man got in the car and closed the door. It seemed that he didn't want to alarm Cymbidium chinense, so he wanted to make things clear to her here. Su Mu got up and frowned. "Yi Xiangnan, what do you want?" "What do I want?" He pinched her chin in the dark. "Su Mu, I want to ask you what you want. I heard that you brought a burden back. Why do you have to take care of him? Are you going to give up your son?" He was really sharp. Su Mu had nothing to say. She pursed her lips and said in a low voice, "Yi Xiangnan, if you could choose, everyone would choose a sunny path. Who would be willing to walk on a single log bridge? So, you're determined to take Su Shaoqing in, and then sell shoes to feed him? Su Mu, are you crazy? You don't want to help someone else take care of your own son." His words were a little harsh. Su Mu stared at his face and said word by word, "That's my younger brother. They don't have the same father, so why do you care? Didn't Wang Yuan break off the relationship with you? Su Mu, you're too kind, so you're like this today. If you hadn't gone to the hospital, you would have been photographed. Do you know how much money Stars Entertainment spent to suppress this wave of news?" He spat out a shocking number. Of course, he didn't feel the pain of spending tens of millions, but this woman didn't know what was good for her. Who did she think she was? Was she the savior? She couldn't even take care of herself, and she still cared about others. Su Mu's eyes widened slightly, and then she lowered her head. "I'm sorry for causing trouble for you, Boss Yi." Yi Xiannan, on the other hand, was stunned. This was the most humble Su Mu he had ever seen. It was as if this was the first time he had heard her apologize. He snorted, let go of her, and sat up straight. Chapter 5091. After a while, he turned his head and looked at her. "Don't be stubborn. I thought you would say that you would return the 70 million to me in the future." "I can't," Su Mu said directly, and then she looked at him seriously. "Mr. Yi thinks that I can take out whatever valuable things I have, as long as I can do it." Yi Xiangnan was annoyed at once. What did she mean? Very well. He reached out his hand and turned on the light in the car. The car light was on, and it was a little dazzling. Yi Xiangnan squinted his eyes and looked at her. Su Mu turned her head away. She couldn't stand his gaze. She wanted to escape, but he didn't let her. He pinched her chin with his slender fingers and murmured, "What's wrong? Can't say anything? Or do you still think about Shen Wenshuan? So you are willing to take care of the Su family's affairs, so that you can get his sympathy and go home in his car?" He went forward again and asked, "Tell me, is it true?" "I don't know what Mr. Yi is talking about." Su Mu's nose was a little red, and her tears were about to fall down. She couldn't choose her family background, and she couldn't get rid of that kind of environment. It was not easy for her to have the courage to live. She had nothing to think about. She had lost everything long ago. She couldn't even keep Cymbidium chinense. Sumu fell into extreme anxiety and even needed to take medicine. She tried to control herself, but she was still helpless in the face of Yi Xiangnan's accusation. Yi Xiangnan squinted and said in a low voice, "Sumu, do you know what I'm talking about?" Now there were only two of them in the car. He could ask her any topic he wanted without worrying about being heard by Cymbidium chinense. He asked again very seriously, "Tell me, do you still like Shen Wenshuan?" "No." Sumu turned her head to the side because he was really too much. She couldn't break free and didn't dare to call for help. She was afraid that the Cymbidium chinense would hear her and come over. Yi Xiangnan sneered, "No? If not, you can look at him affectionately. Miss Su, do you think I'm a fool?" Sumu is trapped by him and can't get out of the car at all. She is extremely embarrassed and has a feeling that she is a bug in his hand. She is in a trance for a while and then says in a low voice, "Actually, it has nothing to do with Mr. Yi." Yi Xiangnan narrowed his eyes. "Nothing to do with you? Sumu, are you joking?" "I'm not joking." Sumu is forced to lean on the back seat. Her face is against the leather seat, and she is a little embarrassed. "We really have nothing to do with each other except for the Cymbidium chinense. Whoever I like and who is in my heart has nothing to do with Mr. Yi." Yi Xiangnan smiles gently. He actually nods understandingly and then says in a low voice, "What you said seems to be right. But Sumu, your love has something to do with my 70 million yuan." Sumu closes her eyes and then says in a low voice, "In fact, you should ask Shen Wenshuan for the money." Yi Xiangnan laughs angrily, "Sumu, what are you talking about?" Sumu closes her eyes and says with a little tiredness, "Mr. Yi, you probably don't know that people like me don't care about reputation. I can't even fill my stomach. Mr. Yi, you asked me to spend 70 million yuan to buy reputation. Are you crazy? Shen Wenshuan is different. His reputation is Yi Hui's reputation. I think you will be happy to pay for it, so you really can't count the money on me." Chapter 5092. Yi Xiangnan stared at her face with a touch of coldness. "You have a sharp tongue. You must have learned a lot from Liu Hong after being a reporter for a while, right?" He pinched her chin and blew a smoke ring on her face. Sumu turned her face away instinctively, but then a stack of photos fell on her face. Although it was light, it was like a slap on her face. The light in the car was turned on. Yi Xiangnan sat inside quietly and said coldly, "Sumu, do you think there are only 2 photos? Do you know how many people have taken photos of you? He spent a lot of money to buy these photos." Sumu didn't look at them. She whispered, "It's not necessary." "What?" Yi Xiaonan rolled down the window a little, lit a cigarette, and smoked slowly. He couldn't figure out what this woman was trying to do. Sumu whispered, "I have said that I don't care about my reputation. That's because Boss Yi cares about his face. If we weren't so close, it would have nothing to do with Boss Yi. Boss Yi doesn't have to talk to me with 70 million yuan and be angry with me again. Am I right?" Yi Xiangnan squinted and said word by word, "Sumu, make it clear." Sumu looked down. "Just as Mr. Yi thought, I may not come here much in the future." Yi Xiangnan was really angry. "Sumu." Sumu smiled at him with a bitter smile. When she opened the car door, she said in a low voice, "Boss Yi, you are born in a noble family. You can't understand the feelings of the people at the bottom." After saying that, she wanted to get out of the car. Yi Xiangnan's voice was very light and cold. "Sumu, think about it clearly. Once you step out of this door, don't come back." Sumu looked down and said, "Mr. Yi, do you have to let me choose?" He did not make a sound and continued to sit in the car. His entire body was filled with a noble aura, which was also incompatible with her. Sumu pursed her lips. She turned her head and stared at him. Yi Xiangnan also looked at her. Sumu said in a low voice, "Please take good care of Cymbidium chinense." "Sumu." Yi Xiangnan almost roared angrily, "Is Cymbidium chinense so unimportant to you? Am I not important to you at all?" This was practically the most straightforward confession Yi Xiaonan had ever made. It could be considered as a confession. Although he was a little flustered and exasperated, if Su Mu had listened carefully, she would have known that he was confessing. She paused for a moment, then said in a low and nasal voice, "Can you help me say sorry to Cymbidium Chinense?" She still left. She slowly walked into the dark night, and also slowly walked out of Yi Xiangnan's world and the villa. Yi Xiangnan was still sitting there. He sat quietly and watched her disappear. After a long time, there was a light in the car. It was him who was smoking. Exhaling a long smoke ring, Mr. Yi chuckled softly. He said that Su Mu was stupid, but in fact, he was also quite stupid. After smoking a cigarette, he got out of the car and walked into the villa. In the villa, the little Cymbidium Chinense was still a little disappointed. He knew nothing about his parents outside. Yi Xiangnan had an indescribable feeling in his heart. He walked over and squatted in front of Cymbidium Chinense. "What's wrong? Why does a boy cry?" At the beginning, his understanding of this child was limited to that he was his biological child. He was unbelievably beautiful, smart and polite, which made him instantly decide to give up Yi Huan for this child. Chapter 5093. At that time, it was really because of blood relations, and also because he recognized Chinane's excellence. It had nothing to do with feelings. He wanted to nurture him well, but he was not sure how much fatherly love he would receive. But now, he felt a little pain in his heart, and this pain made him willing to do something for Cymbidium Chinense. Cymbidium Chinense wanted his mother, so he put down his pride, but that woman was extremely stubborn. He did not know what she was being stubborn about. Couldn't she just beg him and say some soft words to him? She kept a straight face all day long, but she did not feel tired. After Yi Xiangnan finished asking, he reached out and touched Cymbidium Chinense's little head. Cymbidium Chinense was stunned for a while, and then said with a little disappointment, "Daddy, I didn't cry. Your nose is flowing, and you said you didn't cry. And you said you weren't crying." Yi Xiaonan had a servant bring a tissue over and personally wiped away Xiannan's snot. Xiangnan was very sad just now, because his mother did not eat dinner, probably because she did not want to see his father. Now that his father was back, he was afraid that his father would be angry. But facing such a gentle father, Cymbidium Chinense's heart felt warm. After a while, his little face actually turned red, and he was a little shy. Yi Xiangnan carried him. "You haven't eaten yet, right? Let's eat together." The little fellow's little face turned a little redder, and he looked at his father and said, "Oh." Yi Xiangnan carried the little fellow to eat, and as he walked, he said, "Mommy recently found a new job, and may not be able to see Cymbidium Chinense for a while." Cymbidium Chinense's eyes widened. "Really? How did Daddy know?" Yi Xiangnan smiled. "I met her at the door. She told me." As he said that, he placed Cymbidium Chinense on the dining chair, taking especially good care of it. Cymbidium Chinense's little face was still red. Perhaps because he was too easy to talk to, Cymbidium Chinense actually dared to ask, "Daddy, is it really impossible for you and Mommy to be together?" Yi Xiangnan was a little surprised and looked at his son. "Why do you ask?" Little Cymbidium Chinense said softly, "I think Daddy likes Mommy." As he spoke, his little face drooped down, looking innocent, weak, and pitiful. Yi Xiangnan also had some indescribable feelings in his heart. He reached out and gently touched his little head. "Didn't you dislike Daddy before? Why have you changed your mind now? Aren't you afraid that Daddy will bully Mommy?" Cymbidium Chinense's little eyes stared straight at him. Then, "Daddy, will you bully Mummy?" This was really hard to say. Yi Xiangnan thought of the situation in the car before. With Su Mu's expression, it was impossible for him to say that he didn't bully him. He pursed his lips and slightly lowered his voice. "Then, if Daddy bullies Mommy, it's better for us not to be together, right?" The child muttered, "Don't bully her too much. It's fine if she's just a little bit." Yi Xiangnan smiled. Looking at his son's soft little face, he suddenly knew who he was like. He wasn't like Su Mu, and he wasn't like him either. He was 100% like Yi Hui. They both had the same soft temperament. However, he seemed to be very gentle when he was a child, so he didn't mind. Not only did he laugh, but Auntie Chen also laughed. Oh my God, where did young master learn this from? He must have seen it on TV. Don't watch it anymore. Be careful not to be led astray. However, Yi Xiangnan didn't mind. He smiled and reached out to touch his son's head. It's pretty good. Cymbidium chinense obediently looked at his father. Yi Xiangnan smiled. It's not bad to know. Is it Cymbidium chinense? Cymbidium chinense was still in a daze. After a while, it nodded. Chapter 5094. On the other side, Su Mu returned from the villa to her own place. As soon as she arrived, she was stunned. There were a lot of cars parked downstairs. All of them were Maybachs. There were more than 10 of them lined up. Master Cheng was wearing a black coat and sunglasses. Beside him was Su Jian. Su Jian was actually dressed like a secretary. It was really hard for her to wear a short skirt and stockings in the winter. Master Cheng leaned against a car and looked at Su Mu. How about it? I've booked this street. Su Mu, let's go to a street. You can have whatever supper you want. Su Mu slowly approached. Where's Xiaoqing? Master Cheng took off his sunglasses and said with a smile, what can I do to him? I bought fried chicken for him to eat. Miu Miu, I remember that you also like fried chicken. I'll open a fried chicken restaurant for you, even 10. Or, I'll open one on every street in B City. You can go in and have a rest when you're tired. Su Jian, who was at the side, was furious. Although she was now Master Cheng's most pampered woman and usually played around with jewelry, but opening a fried chicken shop on every street, how much pampering was this? Was this true love? Wasn't this kind of love what a woman wanted? However, Su Mu didn't want it. She didn't even want someone like Yi Xiangnan, let alone Master Cheng. Su Mu pursed her lips. The child is not sensible. I've troubled Master Cheng. Master Cheng was a little flattered. He wanted to step forward but stopped. Su Mu still looked indifferent, but the more she looked like this, the more Master Cheng's heart itched. Su Mu was the girl he had been thinking about for many years. He liked her when she was young, but he only dared to sneak a peek at her. He didn't even dare to touch her. At this time, Su Mu was in front of him. In order to match today's extravagance, he deliberately wore a thick gold chain. He didn't believe that Su Mu couldn't see it. It was golden and dazzling. Any woman would like it. As he walked closer, Su Mu took a step back and said very softly, as you grow older, many tastes will change. Master Cheng nodded in understanding. That's right. Just like how you used to like pretty boys like Shun Wen Xian, now you might like a rough old man like me. As he spoke, he touched his head and chuckled. Jian likes me. He raised his voice and turned his head to Su Jian. Tell your sister loudly that Master Cheng is all right. Su Jian was about to vomit to death. Why did this uncouth man need her help to chase after a woman? Moreover, she was about to die from the cold, but Master Cheng didn't even feel sorry for her. Su Jian hesitated for a moment, and Master Cheng gave her a hard kick. Go to hell. Motherfucker. You haven't spoken for a long time. What use do I have for you? Today, in order to see his sweetheart, Master Cheng purposely changed into a pair of pointed leather shoes. This kick caused a bruise to form. Su Jian was in so much pain, but she did not dare to refute. She gritted her teeth and said in a soft voice, Hello, Master Cheng. Master Cheng is the best. Master Cheng is the best. Su Mu simply couldn't hear it. These two were really a perfect match. They were equally shameless. She was about to go upstairs when Master Cheng called out to her again. With one hand in his pocket, his 2 feet tiptoeing, he said in a slightly reserved manner, Oh right, Su Mu, I forgot to tell you something. He pointed at the broken 5-story building. This building has been contracted by me. Official mockery, Master Cheng is going to laugh to death. Master Cheng is actually very cute. Chapter 5095. 69 books. Updated quickly. As soon as Master Cheng finished speaking, a subordinate came over and whispered in his ear, Master Cheng, this building is too shabby. You can't use it like this. Master Cheng was very angry. Why didn't you say so earlier? You didn't ask. His subordinate was innocent and weak. Master Cheng coughed lightly. Moo moo, this building is too shabby. I'll buy you a new one tomorrow. Su Mu said lightly, thank you, but I can't afford it. Give it to someone else. Su Jian's face showed a special look of desire. If that fool Su Mu didn't want it, he could give it to her. But Master Cheng immediately said, if you don't want it, which woman is worthy of it? As he said that, he moved his chin towards Su Jian. Do you think she is worthy of it? Su Jian was furious. Why was she not worthy of it? She was much better looking than Su Mu. Su Mu glanced at her and only felt that her appearance was a little ridiculous. She went upstairs and ignored Master Cheng. At this time, Master Cheng was still in the state of being impatient, blindly trying to please her. Seeing that Su Mu ignored him, he was a little disappointed. At the suggestion of his subordinate, he also sang a love song downstairs, causing many people to lean out of the window and curse. Su Jian originally quite liked him, but at this time, she couldn't help but think that this uncouth man was indeed an uncouth man. But thinking of the time when she and Master Cheng were lovey-dovey, she blushed again. She held Master Cheng's arm and swayed it for a while. She said coquettishly, Master Cheng, see that my sister is ignoring you. Your people did that to my mother and crippled my father's leg. Why would she care about you? Why don't you just give up? Don't you still have me to accompany you? Master Cheng looked at her. You? Yes, I'll accompany Master Cheng. Su Jian smiled, thinking that if Master Cheng was happy, he would reward her with a building. It was hundreds of millions of yuan, and she wouldn't have to worry about food and drink for the rest of her life. Master Cheng was just rejected by Su Mu, and he was in a bad mood. He looked at Su Jian and said, I say, how are you better than your sister? I'm better than her in every aspect, Master Cheng, don't you know that? Su Jian wanted to coquettishly call him a dead man again, but she didn't dare to. Master Cheng sneered, you're better than her in every aspect. You think you're better than her just because you stick to every man you see? You can't even compare to one of her fingers. Su Jian was even more furious. She really wanted to sever all ties with Master Cheng. This was too humiliating. Master Cheng ignored her and got into the car. He was in a bad mood and was ready to find a woman. As soon as he got into the car, Su Jian also got in. She hugged his arm coquettishly. Master Cheng, don't I look good in this secretary uniform? Why don't you look at me? The driver and one of his men in front had no eyes to look at, so they stared straight ahead. Master Cheng glanced at Su Jian. You want the building? Su Jian was overjoyed. Thank you, Master Cheng. Master Cheng immediately ordered his subordinates, buy her a dilapidated building. Dilapidated building. Su Jian was so angry that her face was crooked. She was afraid that Master Cheng would be angry, so she acted coquettishly to please him. Master Cheng is so bad, you only know how to tease me. She put down her status and let people do whatever they wanted. She was also very good at pleasing people. At least now, Master Cheng was in a better mood. He was rebuffed by Su Mu, but he found a sense of existence in this woman. In fact, there were a lot of women like Su Jian who tried their best to please him, but Su Jian had one advantage over them, and that was that her eyebrows looked a little like Su Mu. When he couldn't get the real deal, getting her sister was also something to be proud of. Especially when that girl Su Mu couldn't help but stare at him when he doted on Su Jian, she must be jealous. Chapter 5096. Master Cheng was satisfied, and then hooked his finger at Su Jian. You're so considerate. You know how to please people, tell me what you want. Su Jian wasn't stupid, so she acted even more coquettishly. Master Cheng, you're so bad. I don't want anything, I just want to be with you. No man could stand her coquettish skills. The man in front thought silently, Master Cheng doesn't mind it. She's so disgusting, isn't she? Master Cheng didn't mind at this time, but he did when he was annoyed, so he didn't treat Su Jian well. He only called her over when he was in a good mood, but Su Jian quite liked this kind of life. There were 3 or 4 women in the villa, but Master Cheng liked her the most. Besides money, she was also quite infatuated with Master Cheng. Master Cheng's physique was strong and particularly charming, which was what Su Jian liked. On the contrary, she had no interest in unattainable men like Qin Xian and Yi Xiangnan. Instead, she felt that these men were bad. Master Cheng was such a simple and direct man. Su Jian blushed, put on a black pajamas, and got up. Master Cheng was brushing his teeth. She carefully served him, and carefully asked, "Why did you get up so early today? You usually don't get up so early." Master Cheng looked at her, "Little hussy, it's none of your business. I have something important to do today." Su Jian pinched her fingernails, and said unhappily, "You're going to see Su Mu again?" Perhaps because Master Cheng was very gentle last night, she suddenly became arrogant again. "Aya, what's so good about that blockhead Su Mu? She always has a long face." As soon as she finished speaking, Master Cheng looked at her with a dark face. Su Jian immediately understood that he was unhappy, because Master Cheng would hit a woman when he was unhappy. Su Jian was quite afraid of him, but she couldn't leave him. She even felt that he was very manly when he hit a woman. Sure enough, a slap came, but not to her face, but to her shoulder. It hurt like hell, but Su Jian still endured it. Master Cheng glanced at her. "If I hear you say anything bad about her in the future, I will beat you to death." Su Jian took a step back and bit her lip. She thought about it again. He said he wanted to beat her, but he didn't say he didn't want her. Master Cheng still had her in his heart. When he thought about it, he felt better. He leaned against the door and watched Master Cheng shave his beard. In fact, Su Jian was not bad looking and was young. With her slender waist and soft body, she was quite charming. But what kind of person was Master Cheng? He was used to seeing women who took the initiative. He no longer cared for women who took the initiative. So he didn't even look at Su Jian. Instead, he said, "Today, I projected dozens of big screens all over the city." Su Jian's heart skipped a beat. She immediately wanted to ask, but she knew that if she used a jealous tone, she would definitely be beaten up by Master Cheng. So, she went over and leaned on his shoulder, acting coquettishly. "I told you, Master Cheng, you're a tycoon. These screens cost a lot, right?" After shaving, Master Cheng wiped his hands with a towel and smiled. "It's just a few million." Su Jian was furious. A few million was enough to buy a pigeon's egg, and he used it to please Su Mu. But no matter how angry she was, she didn't dare to argue with Master Cheng. Master Cheng's fists were very hard, and he didn't soften his heart when he hit a woman. If he really hit her, she wouldn't be able to handle it. Seeing that she didn't speak, Master Cheng walked over and pinched her chin to size her up. Actually, Su Jian looked closely, especially under the lights, and she looked similar to Su Mu. It was just that one's eyes were too serious, and the other was slightly flirtatious. Chapter 5097. Master Cheng admired it for a while under the light. He was interested at first, but after thinking about it for a while, he let go of Su Jian. Su Jian was a little unwilling. She wanted to keep Master Cheng, but there was no point in acting coquettishly. He only had his sweetheart in his heart. She was especially angry. She twisted her waist and went to the bedroom to smoke. She even smoked the cigarette specially provided by Master Cheng. Master Cheng came over and pinched the cigarette in her hand. The cigarette that was emitting sparks directly burned Master Cheng's hand. Master Cheng seemed to be playing with it and did not take it to heart at all. Su Jian bit her lips and made a fuss. "Master Cheng, you're hurt. Don't make a fuss." Master Cheng pinched her cheek. He was in a rare good mood. "When I get your sister back, you two will be able to be together forever." Su Jian pouted. Master Cheng curled his lips. "You're not happy." Su Jian reached out and wrapped her arms around his neck. She breathed out, "Then who will Master Cheng love more?" Master Cheng smiled. "You're cuter, of course." With that, he moved her hand away and left. Su Jian was furious again. She couldn't keep Master Cheng. Although he was coaxing her and saying she was cute, what he meant was that he loved Su Mu the most. What was there to look at? They were both old women who had given birth. She thought about it and went to smoke again. She had secretly tried the kind that Master Cheng didn't let her smoke. Master Cheng said that she shouldn't touch it, but she felt bored by herself. Slowly, she got used to it and couldn't leave. Later, Master Cheng found out and beat her up. Seeing that she couldn't change, he let it go. He had a lot of things here anyway. He was just providing for her because she had served him. Su Jian lay there, smoking as she scrolled through her phone. Then, she stared blankly. She threw her phone to the side, fuming. When would that man be able to be so attentive to her? In the busiest area of B City, there were tall buildings. Stars and King Corporation had built buildings in this area, towering in the blue sky and white clouds. Today, the atmosphere in Stars was a little strange, especially strange. Because their CEO Yi was about to explode. Take a look at what's on the biggest screen nearby. They're all pictures of some rich man confessing to Su Mu. The whole screen is full of roses and tacky pigeon eggs. A total of 30 of the biggest screens have been shown for a week. What was even more bizarre was that the gentleman even bought a building as a betrothal gift to Su Mu. The building was named Shuemu Nianhua, which meant Mu. What a large sum of money. It was a little tacky, but it was no match for such wealth. What was most outrageous was that the Shuemu building was right across the street from the Starlight building, standing side by side like a Gemini constellation. Secretary Li stood beside his boss and sighed again. This is really rich and overbearing, rich and overbearing. That building was worth tens of billions, and he gave it away just like that. She remembered that even CEO Yi was not this generous when he was about to get married. Was he angry now because he was outdone by someone else? Secretary Li smiled meaningfully. Or was CEO Yi jealous? Actually, Secretary Li could understand. With one look, she could tell that the other party was a nouveau riche who was willing to spend money. CEO Yi was born into a wealthy family. Of course, he wasn't stingy, but he wasn't someone who would easily spend money for a woman. That would be stupid in the eyes of a cultured man. But today, this stupid man in B City made Su Mu the envy of all the women in the city. Chapter 5098. Updated quickly, at least, at the place where Su Mu had been, the shop assistant at the shoe counter covered her face. Oh my god, Su Mu hooked up another diamond bachelor, Mr. Cheng. In the Sun Daily, everyone's mood was even more complicated. Du Meili looked at the news in the newspapers and magazines. She couldn't believe it. She was going to go crazy. She was going to be crazy. Su Mu, it's Su Mu again. She actually hooked Master Cheng. Who was Master Cheng? B City's nouveau riche was extremely powerful. Which entertainment venue didn't want to pay their respects to Master Cheng's doc so that they could have a better future? Her gossip was that Master Cheng had a strong taste. Since when did he start to play with novelty? Du Meili remembered that she was going to do an exclusive interview later on. Yes, it seemed that Master Cheng had spent a few million yuan to request for the news agency to beautify him and make him look like a cultured person. Thinking of this, Du Meili was especially angry and scolded him. Sister Hong, who was passing by, heard this and smiled. Master Cheng is also very rich. Do you know that Master Cheng has a net worth of hundreds of billions? He is willing to give away tens of billions to Su Mu. Which woman in B City doesn't envy Su Mu? Du Meili asked. Sister Hong, you envy him too? Don't you see money as dirt? Sister Hong smiled. Of course I don't care about hundreds of thousands or millions. But a man holding tens of billions and kneeling in front of her, which woman wouldn't be tempted? Du Meili was especially angry. Sister Hong smiled again. Actually, these are all normal. Which woman doesn't love money? Master Cheng is handsome, has a good physique, and is rich. I heard that he is very generous. Is it important whether he is cultured or not? Du Meili clenched her fingers. Tens of billions. He gave it away just like that. What kind of man is he? Du Meili was quite envious and longing. For half a day, no one in the magazine was working. Everyone was discussing Su Mu, the star of South Africa. Su Mu didn't know about it at first. She was taken by someone on the street, and there was a young girl smiling at her with a strange gaze. It was only later that she found out what Master Cheng had done. She didn't want to pay attention to him. After a long time, he would become boring. Su Mu was busy looking for a job. She circled around a few places to interview, but no matter which place she went, as soon as they saw her face, they rejected her. In just half a day's time, she had become a celebrity. She was even more famous than when she was in a scandal. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Su Mu's name immediately rushed to the first place on the hot search list. Su Mu's secret of flirting with a man. Other than Shun Wenshuan and Yi Xiangnan, there was also Cheng Zheng, the famous Master Cheng in B City. Master Cheng was very awesome. Moreover, from the photo, he looked like he had bulging shoulders. However, if one looked closely, his eyebrows and eyes were very handsome. His nose was extremely big and his lips were especially beautiful. He had character. Countless marketing accounts were begging Su Mu to show them the secret of flirting with a man. How did she win over these eligible bachelors? Did she have some special ability? Su Mu sat in the park, gnawing on her bread. Special ability? She almost didn't have enough food to eat. Now that she had another mouth, what secret of flirting with a man? Cheng Zheng's matter was a little big. Was it that easy to get tens of billions? If she took it and didn't marry Master Cheng, she would be smashed into pieces. When a man like that said he liked you, he would like you very much. When he didn't like you, he would be like Su Jian. Only a fool would like him. Chapter 5099. Su Mu nibbled on her bread and looked up at the two buildings that stood side by side. One of the buildings had the word Shiremu written on it, and there was even a photo of her. The photo was taken when she was wearing a uniform when she was selling shoes. Su Mu felt that he was really bored to do such a thing. It was drizzling. She packed up her things and prepared to go home. She was living in a dormitory, so she was more relaxed. The only thing she wanted to do was to earn some money. As for school, she would study at night and take the exam. Su Mu didn't have high requirements. She just wanted to stay alive. However, the predicament she was facing now was that no matter where she went, people would point fingers at her. It was impossible to ignore it. Su Mu tried her best to convince herself that she didn't care, but she couldn't find a job. She was a little flustered. Later, the manager of the previous shoe counter called her and was willing to take her in. Su Mu went to that shoe store and was a living advertisement. She could sell hundreds of pairs of shoes every day. Even the brand manager was quite satisfied with her. On the spiral staircase on the second floor, Yi Xiangnan stood by the armrest in a formal suit and looked at Su Mu quietly. Secretary Li stood by the side silently. That dog of a man must be anxious now. Hurry up and give this building to Miss Su. I'm going all out. Go for it. In terms of financial resources, CEO Yi, you can't lose. Yi Xiangnan's voice was very indifferent. How is it now? Secretary Li made a sound. What do you mean, how is it? Yi Xiangnan turned his head. Has it been removed from the hot search? Secretary Li sighed. It's useless even if it's removed from Miss Su's current popularity. This shopping mall has already become a tourist spot. However, CEO Yi is gratified that the turnover has increased by 300% these days. That dog of a man didn't spend money and still relied on women to earn money. Yi Xiangnan's face darkened. The more people there were, the brighter the cuckold he was wearing. Su Mu was not his wife, but she was the mother of his child. The entire B city knew that another man had wrapped up 30 large screens to express his love to her like a nouveau riche. People were watching in the company, and people were teasing him at home. What had he done wrong? It was all Su Mu's fault. Why didn't she know her place? Why did she have to come out and attract bees and butterflies? Yi Xiangnan was very dissatisfied. He let out a long sigh and looked at Secretary Li. Before he opened his mouth, Secretary Li had already begun to plead, Boss Yi, Miss Su is already very miserable. For the sake of Cymbidium chinense, did I say anything about firing her? Yi Xiangnan snorted coldly. Am I such an unreasonable person? In Secretary Li's heart, he said, you are. But she didn't dare to say this out loud. She just kept quiet. Yi Xiangnan glanced at his secretary again and didn't say anything else. Just as the two of them were about to leave, a person, no, it should be said that a group of people walked into the mall. The person who came was none other than Master Cheng. Master Cheng spent millions and tens of millions to smash 30 screens, but in the end, it was like a stone thrown into a lake. It didn't even make a sound. Anyway, he waited patiently for a few days, waiting for Su Mu to feel it and come over crying and saying that she was willing. He believed that he could smash Su Mu down from a building that was worth billions. Who knew, Su Mu was really the same as when she was a child. It was as if time had changed the environment around her, and Su Mu herself would never change. Master Cheng was supposed to be angry, but at this moment, he thought that Su Mu was the woman he fancied. She was different from others. Just thinking about it made him excited again. Chapter 5100. Master Cheng was supposed to be angry, but thinking that Su Mu was the woman he liked, and she was different from others, he got excited just thinking about it. As for women, there was no hurry. He wanted Su Mu very much, but he wanted to possess her spiritually. He was very respectful. Those women were like dogs to Master Cheng. If they were to be lost one day, he wouldn't even bat an eyelid. As soon as Master Cheng arrived, the people around dispersed. They were chased to the side. On the second floor, Secretary Li's voice was very soft. CEO Yi, do you want to call security? It's too arrogant, it's not good. Yi Xiangnan held the handrail with both hands and looked at the first floor quietly. He said lightly, wait a minute. He wanted to see how Su Mu would deal with this uncouth man. Secretary Li glanced at him and didn't say anything, bastard. There was no expression on Yi Xiangnan's face. He still remembered Su Mu's resolute attitude that night. This woman was really cruel. She didn't even want Cymbidium chinense. She wanted to take care of Su Shaoqing, she wanted to solve the problems at home or this uncouth man, he could help her, but she didn't say anything. She was so stubborn that she wanted to draw a line with Cymbidium chinense. How old was Cymbidium chinense? What could he know? He would only think that his mother didn't want him anymore. Just thinking about it made him feel that she was unforgivable. The first floor was surrounded by people. Originally, the security was going to come over, but the boss knew that CEO Yi was here, so he gestured for them not to move. Thus, the people from all sides retreated. Yi Xiangnan stood there with a noble face. When Su Mu saw Master Cheng, she felt a headache coming on. She lowered her eyes and said to the man who came over, I'm sorry, we don't have men's shoes here. Although Master Cheng had a charming personality, he was 185 centimeters tall and strong. Otherwise, Su Jian wouldn't be so infatuated with him. In Su Jian's heart, Master Cheng was the sky, the god, and the most masculine Master Cheng. After Su Mu finished speaking, the manager also came over and tried to persuade Master Cheng to leave first. It was okay to talk about personal matters after work. Grandpa Cheng smiled. Why? You don't want to do business? I'm here to buy shoes for my wife. This was the busiest part of the shopping mall. Outside the shopping mall, there was still a big screen of Master Cheng's confession to Su Mu. The manager who accepted the order had already been fired by Yi Xiangnan. Normally, he would only accept this kind of order. Therefore, everyone knew Su Mu. Naturally, they could tell that she was a tycoon. B City's Master Cheng became famous after a single battle. Since Master Cheng said that, the manager couldn't say anything. She smiled and said, Sir, why don't your employees go out and have some tea first? Master Cheng stared at Su Mu like a tiger staring at a rabbit. He looked very interested. This kind of gaze made Yi Xiangnan, who was on the second floor, a little uncomfortable, but he still looked on quietly. Secretary Li glanced at him. CEO Yi was really able to keep his composure, however, it seemed like he was angry with Miss Su. With their relationship, no matter what, they should go down and get rid of Master Cheng. With Master Cheng's influence in B City, he didn't have many opponents. If CEO Yi didn't make a move, Miss Su probably wouldn't be able to get away. While Secretary Li was thinking about this, Mr. Cheng touched his hair and smiled. What this little leader said makes sense. We should go and have some tea. He gave a look and one of his subordinates actually understood what he meant. He immediately carried the manager and brought her out for tea. The rest of the employees didn't dare to make a sound. Chapter 5101. Sumu pursed her lips and showed a professional smile. Sir, may I know the size of your wife's feet? What style do you like? I can help you choose the most suitable one. Master Cheng ordered his men to line up and guard the entrance of the branded store to prevent anyone from entering. He walked in himself and scratched his head. He smiled and said, this place is pretty good. Sumu looked at him quietly. Master Cheng sat down and looked around. Then, he asked Sumu to go over. Sumu stood in front of him. Master Cheng said, My wife's feet are the same size as your feet. I've measured them myself. His words were quite seductive. Gasps could be heard from all around. However, Sumu was neither servile nor overbearing. That's 36, right? Then I'll help your wife pick. Master Cheng put down a check with the amount of 1 million. Pick whatever you like. My wife will like it. Master Cheng leaned against the counter and smiled gently. His smile was quite seductive. Many of the shop assistants peeked at him secretly. Just like what Sister Hong said, who could refuse a man who spent 10 billion at one go? However, in Mr. Cheng's eyes, only Sumu was worth this price. Other women could be easily sent away by jewelry worth hundreds of thousands of yuan or even millions of yuan. How could he confess his love to them? They were the ones who served him softly. There was only one Sumu in this world. Master Cheng said and looked at Sumu eagerly. On the second floor, Yi Xiangnan stared at the two of them coldly. Secretary Li felt that a fight might break out at any time. CEO Yi's gaze was so scary, as if he was catching them in the act. If Sumu was willing, she wouldn't be working here. She admired Sumu. She could also see that Master Cheng liked Sumu. At least, he liked her more than CEO Yi. He was willing to put in effort to please her in front of so many people. Who was that? It was Master Cheng, who had survived from the edge of a knife. It was rare for him to spend so much effort on a woman. Secretary Li thought that if it was him, he probably wouldn't be able to withstand it. Besides, Master Cheng was also quite handsome. He was different from CEO Yi's image, but he was also quite charming. He was rough and masculine. He had also heard that Master Cheng had quite a number of women. While Secretary Li was lost in his thoughts, Sumu picked up a pair of shoes and looked at Master Cheng. Master Cheng had an indifferent look on his face as he chuckled. I've said it before. As long as you like it, I'll buy them all. Sumu whispered to the other shop assistants to wrap it up, and she went to pick a few more pairs. Master Cheng asked them to wrap up all the shoes. Sumu didn't stand on ceremony with him. He closed the shop and affected the business, so she took a pair of almost every style. The shoes of this brand were not cheap. There were 2,000 or 3,000 to 7,000 or 8,000. Sumu calculated the bill and looked at the check on the side. She said softly, It's 1,364,000. Mr. Cheng, do you want to pay by card or cash? Master Cheng didn't let go of any opportunity to get close to Sumu. He smiled lightly and asked, Do you want me to pay by card or cash? If it's cash, I'll ask someone to bring it over from the vault. Everyone sucked in a mouthful of air. Vault. Fuck, how rich is he? Looking at Sumu, she was still unmoved. She was really calm. No wonder she could catch such a big fish. Chapter 5102. Looking at Sumu, she was still unmoved. She was really calm. No wonder she could catch such a big fish. Didn't the novel say that the female lead that the rich male lead liked was different from other coquettish and cheap women? She was especially refined. But Sumu didn't have good looks. Thinking about it again, there were so many beautiful women around rich men. What she wanted was this fresh and refined. The people around looked at Sumu. Sumu was still expressionless. Swipe the card. Master Cheng took out a gold card from his wallet and swiped more than 1 million without blinking. Several shopping guides carried about a car full of shoe boxes over. Fortunately, Master Cheng had brought a lot of men with him. He smiled and said, "Mew Mew, I'll send them to your place." After a pause, he said, "How about I give you another villa? Without a cloakroom of 100 square meters, you can't put these things in." Master Cheng was a man of his word. He turned around and said to his men, "Clean up the villa in Zhongxi and give it to Miss Su. Tomorrow, have someone transfer it to Miss Su." Su Mu didn't say anything. Everything he did had nothing to do with her. In fact, they had known each other since they were young. Cheng Zheng liked her very much, but at that time, she was young and had never thought about it that way. Moreover, he was really not her type. Now that he was pestering her, Su Mu didn't have a good time either. Su Mu lowered her eyes and said in a low voice, "Mr. Cheng and Mrs. Cheng have also bought shoes. We still need to do business here. Please do us a favor." Master Cheng came here today to cultivate a relationship with Su Mu. How could he leave so easily? He thought for a moment and said with a faint smile, "I bought Mrs. Cheng's shoes, but I don't know if they fit. These shoes," he lowered his voice and seemed to be a little too intimate. "You haven't tried the size yet." Su Mu looked at him and then said in a low voice, "If the size is wrong, we can exchange it." Master Cheng said with great interest, "Why don't you go to the villa with me and try on a pair for me to see? Didn't I say that my wife's feet are as big as yours and as white as yours?" These words were a little inappropriate. Fortunately, Master Cheng still respected Su Mu. Although he was flirting with Su Mu, his voice was not loud, and no one else heard it. Su Mu glanced at him and continued to calculate today's turnover. She said in an especially light voice, "You can let Su Jian try it for you." She must be overjoyed. Master Cheng smiled. "Mew Mew, you must be jealous." When the people around heard this, they all sighed. Master Cheng was too capable. It was obvious that the other party had rejected him, but his interpretation was too exquisite. He refused to leave. Su Mu looked at him again. "Why don't you buy something else for your wife, like jewelry or something?" Master Cheng was rich, but he was afraid that Su Mu wouldn't say anything. Now that he saw that Su Mu had agreed, everything was really easy to talk to. He said happily, "What kind of jewelry do you want?" "No, I mean, Mew Mew, what kind of jewelry do you think my wife likes?" Su Mu said expressionlessly, "A big one." Master Cheng smiled and touched his head. "A big one is good, a big one is good. I'll buy it." The entire shopping mall was almost out of service. They could only watch Master Cheng chase after a woman online. A man who was willing to spend 10 billion yuan was the center of attention. At this time, Yi Xiangnan turned his head and said to Secretary Li, "Tell the manager here that all the jewelry will not be discounted today. Bring the most expensive ones to all the counters." Secretary Li was also watching with great interest. Chapter 5103. Secretary Li was also watching with great interest. That Master Cheng was so funny, but he was also quite infatuated. Which man was so free to spend so much money to go shopping with his woman? While Secretary Li was thinking, CEO Yi's cold eyes drifted over, which made her not dare to look at him anymore. CEO Yi seemed to be very unhappy. Yes, his wife was being crazily pursued. Which man could stand it? If he couldn't stand it, he would do it. And he was still earning money here. Bastard. Secretary Li really wanted to complain. It was too outrageous, but as a secretary, she had to stand on the same side with CEO Yi's interests. She immediately arranged for all activities to be stopped today, and there would be no discounts. Because CEO Yi was determined to kill Master Cheng. Master Cheng followed beside Su Mu, and he was in a good mood. He inadvertently looked up and saw a very handsome little gigolo standing on the second floor. That little gigolo was really good looking, and when he looked again, he saw that it was Yi Xiangnan. As a male, the expression on Master Cheng's face immediately changed. It was as if the Master Cheng who was good at pleasing women just now was no longer there, but a man who could tear his opponent in half at any time. Master Cheng licked his lips lightly, like an animal licking its wound. At this moment, Master Cheng seemed to have changed into another person. And CEO Yi was still standing on the second floor like a noble son, high and mighty. Some people were born to be high and mighty, just like Yi Xiangnan. There was a hint of killing intent in Master Cheng's eyes, but it only lasted for a few seconds, and then he returned to normal, and even greeted Yi Xiangnan. Yi Xiangnan looked at him coldly, without saying anything. He was born into a family, so he didn't have any dealings with Master Cheng. The Yi family had a deep foundation in B City. In the past, it was Yi Mulin, and now it was Wen Yuan's uncle. Who dared to touch it? Even if Cheng Jing had a net worth of hundreds of billions, he was also a famous person in B City, but in terms of status, there was still a certain gap between him and Yi Xiangnan. One was a noble, and the other was a nouveau riche. Yi Xiangnan was a man with the surname Yi Wen. Ordinary people couldn't compare to him. Of course, only Su Mu didn't buy it. His cold expression at this moment was also a kind of provocation to Master Cheng. The gazes between the men sized each other up, both of them using silence to counter each other. After a while, Master Cheng stopped Su Mu. "Miu Miu, this set of jewelry is good. Do you think my wife will like it?" Su Mu walked over and didn't say anything. Her gaze lingered on the set of jewelry that was worth more than 10 million yuan for about 10 seconds. By Master Cheng's orders. As a result, he bought more than 10 million yuan worth of jewelry. Later, no matter which one Su Mu liked, Master Cheng would buy it, as long as his Miu Miu was happy. Master Cheng kept buying, and the hands of his subordinates were also filled with expensive boxes, until Master Cheng's gold card was maxed out. Fuck, his 200 million card was maxed out. Grandpa Cheng scratched his head. Su Mu looked at him. She could only be regarded as delicate and pretty, but now looking at him like this, there was actually an indescribable charm. Master Cheng couldn't stand such a gaze, so he coughed lightly and said, "Let me open the vault, or exchange for a card." Su Mu hadn't spoken to him, but at this time, she said, "No need, I'm off work." As she said that, she walked to her shop. Master Cheng followed her, but the door was full of dust. Su Mu changed her clothes. When she left, she didn't look at Master Cheng, and of course, she didn't look at Yi Xiangnan on the second floor. Master Cheng caught up with her and gave all the expensive things to Su Mu. Chapter 5104. Su Mu looked at him quietly. After a while, she said in a low voice, "I don't want it. You bought it. It doesn't matter if you give it to Su Jian or another woman. I don't want it. I know you can afford it, but your money isn't mine. Cheng Jing, I won't like you." She rejected him completely. After saying that, she ran to the bus by the side of the road. The next bus would arrive in 10 minutes. Master Cheng held a bunch of things in his hands and looked at her back. For a moment, he wanted to ask his men to grab her and bring her to his villa. But he gave up on such a crazy idea after thinking about it for a while. Su Mu was the girl that he, Cheng Zheng, had liked since he was 8 years old. Although she accidentally had a relationship with another man, in Master Cheng's heart, Su Mu was still a pure and clean little fairy. Master Cheng looked at the direction in which she left. He was a little dazed. The crowd also dispersed. All the big screens in the square were still playing the scene of him wooing Su Mu. He was also holding 200 million worth of jewelry in his hands. But Su Mu said that he didn't want it. She had no interest in his money at all. She didn't like his money. Did she like him? Master Cheng is really funny. Master Cheng thought in a daze. What did Su Mu not like him? What did he do wrong? He felt that he was the best. He was perfect everywhere. His sister, Su Jian, was infatuated with him. She said that Master Cheng was the best. Which woman didn't say that he was good? He was handsome, had a good body, and was generous. Of course, he also had a small problem. He would hit women. But he would never do that to Su Mu. He loved her so much. Moreover, he was a little afraid of Su Mu. Su Mu liked to put on a sour face since she was young. But he liked it the most when she put on a straight face. Master Cheng was thinking about when he started to like Su Mu. It was probably when he was hungry for 2 days and Su Mu secretly made 2 rice balls. Cheng Zheng's background was even worse than Su Mu's. His father killed her mother and went to prison. There was only a 7 or 8-year-old child at home, and he was very similar to his deadbeat father. At that time, none of his relatives were willing to take him in. Who would want to take in a ticking time bomb? Only Su Mu fed him like a stray dog for 2 years. Sometimes, when there was no leftover food at home, she would give her share to him. Little Su Mu was always hungry. Now, he was giving her 10 billion yuan, and she deserved it. Master Cheng thought dejectedly, it's just that she doesn't want it. In addition, the reason why he was so ruthless to the Su family was because they found out that Su Mu fed him when he was young. That shrew, Mother Su, almost broke his leg. Su Qiong also said some nasty things. Now he gave them all back. Another reason was that they were not good to Su Mu. Master Cheng had thought that Su Mu had been with Shen Wenshuan all these years. Although that boy was weak, he seemed to have a good character. When he was at his lowest, he found Su Mu, and that boy gave him 2,000 yuan. It could be said that he had fed him with Su Mu. Master Cheng is really funny. Therefore, for this kindness, he did not do anything to Shen Wenshuan. However, in the future, whoever dared to bully his Miu Miu would be against Master Cheng. Master Cheng's fighting spirit was rekindled. She was not married and single. If the Yi family wanted to raise a son, they could raise him. If they didn't want to, Master Cheng had a lot of money. He could raise Su Mu's son to be white and fat. When he went out, everyone would call him Cymbidium Chinense young master. Chapter 5105. Memorize. Just as Master Cheng was in high spirits, a cold and noble voice sounded behind him, Mr. Cheng Zheng. With our CEO Yi's status and background, of course he wouldn't call him master. Master Cheng turned his head. He didn't need to look to know that he was Su Mu's gigolo. When Master Cheng turned his head, he quickly put on a fake smile. Boss Yi, what brings you here? Unfortunately, this shopping mall is under the management of Starlight. Can't I come and take a look? Yi Xiangnan smiled faintly. Master Cheng patted his head and said, oh, by the way, I forgot that Starlight Entertainment is also rich. Look, I forgot that. I was too careless and took money to please Miu Miu. Boss Yi, you won't mind, will you? Yi Xiangnan sneered, what does Mr. Cheng think is worth fussing about? Master Cheng showed a cunning expression, since CEO Yi doesn't care about it, why do you show such an ugly expression? Suddenly, Yi Xiangnan felt as uncomfortable as if he had swallowed a fly. His voice became even colder. I'm not uncomfortable. Really? Master Cheng smiled. CEO Yi, you should go back and look at yourself in the mirror. He paused for a moment and said, some people just don't know how to cherish it. Miu Miu is so good. Yi Xiangnan glanced at him, disdained to speak to him, and turned to leave. Secretary Li, who was following behind him, suddenly turned his head and smiled at Master Cheng. Hello, Master Cheng. Master Cheng was so happy that he threw a set of jewelry over. Just because of this, Lord, I'm happy. Secretary Li was overjoyed. This pigeon egg was worth more than 1,000,000 yuan. Master Cheng was really domineering. Secretary Li wanted to ask him if he needed a secretary, but when he thought that the secretaries around him all had a second function, he gave up. Yi Xiangnan was waiting for her in the parking lot. When he saw the secretary coming over, he looked at her and said, you're so promising. Secretary Li was surprised. Boss Yi, you know about it? Yi Xiangnan lit a cigarette and smoked quietly. After a while, he looked at Secretary Li and asked, are you tempted? Secretary Li opened the box and picked out the pigeon blood. It was really red like blood and it was quite big. Su Mu had picked the older ones. Secretary Li actually suspected the relationship between Su Mu and Master Cheng. Cheng Zheng's temper wasn't very good, but she was very accommodating to Su Mu. However, she wouldn't tell CEO Yi about this. CEO Yi had eyes too. He wasn't blind. In Secretary Li's heart, if Master Cheng didn't have any messy women around him, then he would be a more considerate man than CEO Yi. Secretary Li looked at CEO Yi, who seemed to be in a bad mood. No matter whether CEO Yi wanted to reconcile with Su Mu or not, It wasn't good for his son's biological mother to have a man like Master Cheng by her side. He was rich and had the physique of a man. Couldn't it show CEO Yi's advantages? Yi Xiangnan's voice was indifferent. Are you tempted by these jewels? And the house, a skyscraper. A building worth tens of billions. Secretary Li swallowed hard. Of course she was moved. The dogman must have met his match, and he was flustered. But on the surface, Secretary Li couldn't say that. She said with backbone, it also depends on the situation. It depends on who sent it. If it's sent by CEO Yi, of course I'm tempted. But Mr. Cheng, of course, won't be tempted. Yi Xiangnan lowered his eyes. Then throw this ring away. Secretary Li was stunned. This, more than 1,000,000 yuan. Chapter 5106. Memorize. Of course, Secretary Li was dumbfounded. More than $1,000,000 was thrown away just like that. Did President Yi think that she was from a rich family? Of course, Secretary Li's heart ached. She didn't move for a long time. Yi Xiangnan didn't really want her to throw it away. He got in the car without saying anything. Secretary Li followed him and sat in the passenger seat. Boss Yi, will you be angry? Why are you angry? Yi Xiangnan put his hands on the steering wheel and tilted his head. It's not like Su Mu took his things. On the contrary, it was Su Mu who made Cheng Zheng bleed a lot. Although it wasn't much to Cheng Zheng, seeing a man in a worse state than him and Su Mu ignoring him made him feel indescribably happy. Therefore, he did not care about Secretary Li's greed. Besides, Cheng Zheng was willing to do it. Yi Xiangnan's car drove past a few intersections, and there were advertisements of Master Cheng's courtship everywhere. He was quite speechless. Even Secretary Li was moved. He said sincerely, Su Mu's willpower is really strong. If it were me, I would have submitted long ago. Submitted? Yi Xiangnan's fingers tightened on the steering wheel, and his voice was low and hoarse. From what? Secretary Li let out an ah and knew that he had said the wrong thing. He didn't say anything for a long time. As Yi Xiangnan drove, the streets gradually darkened, and there were lights on the roadside. There was also Su Mu. They were everywhere. There was also Cheng Zheng's passionate pursuit of her. This was indeed a problem for Yi Xiangnan. He also knew that with Su Mu's bad temper, it was impossible for her to be with Cheng Zheng. Even if he threw a mountain of gold and silver at her, it would be useless. He also felt strange. How did he end up with Su Mu? Su Mu's character was really strange. How could he meet such a strange woman? In the past, Yi Xiangnan especially hated Su Mu's character. He felt that she was too old-fashioned and couldn't be talked to. But now, he was glad and admired her. Think about it. If Cheng Zheng, that uncouth man, courted Yi Xiangnan's ex-wife, would he still have any face in the future? Thinking about it, Yi Xiangnan felt a little better. He dropped Secretary Li off at the next intersection and asked her to take a taxi. Secretary Li held the pigeon egg in her hands. Her heart was warm in this winter. Yi Xiannan's car drove into the traffic again. He checked his phone, but there was no call. He checked his phone. There was no phone. Yi Xiangnan. He pursed his thin lips into a straight line and continued driving without saying a word. But in the end, he drove to Su Mu's apartment. Moreover, he had arrived at Su Mu's building a step earlier. What was even more bizarre was that he wasn't alone. Master Cheng had already squatted down before him. There was a huge pile of gifts beside Master Cheng. They were glittering and colorful. Haha tilde. When Yi Xiangnan got out of the car, Master Cheng was very happy. Isn't this our CEO Yi? Didn't you say that you didn't care? Why did you still come? Yi Xiangnan lit a cigarette. Mr. Cheng is here too. Master Cheng put his hand on his head and said, I'm here. I'm here to give Miu Miu a gift. Ex-husband, what did you bring? You didn't come here empty-handed, did you? In the face of a scoundrel like Master Cheng, a rich young master like Yi Xiangnan was completely powerless. Master Cheng was very proud. He lit a cigar and said, a man can't be too stingy when chasing a woman. CEO Yi, did you divorce Miu Miu because she thought you were stingy? You don't even want your son anymore. How much does she dislike you? Yi Xiangnan's face was as ugly as it could be. From noon to night tomorrow, there will be 20,000 to 30,000 updates. I'm so tired. Chapter 5107. CEO Yi's face was ashen. No one had ever dared to look down on him like this, calling him stingy, but if he were to take out a huge amount of money like Cheng Zheng did, it would make him look as stupid as this nouveau riche. Young Master Yi would never do such a thing. It wasn't that he was reluctant to spend money, but it was because of his style. He was different from Cheng Zheng. No one could restrain Cheng Zheng, but young Master Yi was different. Yi Xiangnan was born into a big family and was the CEO of Stars Entertainment. Every move he made was watched by everyone. Under such restrictions, he was actually put in a difficult position by a big uncouth man. He looked at Master Cheng with some arrogance. Master Cheng smiled. Yo, your face is pale and red one moment, are you angry? Nope. Yi Xiangnan didn't want to bother with him and wanted to walk further away. But he had really underestimated Master Cheng's firepower. Master Cheng was still smiling. So you admit that you're a pretty boy? Yi Xiangnan had never dealt with such a person before. There were so many sinister people in the business world and he had seen all of them, but he had never seen such a scoundrel before. At that moment, Yi Xiangnan's face was extremely ugly. He walked to his car door and was about to get in. Master Cheng laughed with his underlings. As expected of a young master, he gets angry easily like a girl. How can he coax a woman? To coax a woman, you have to be thick-skinned. CEO Yi throws a tantrum easily. Ex-husband brother, do you think you can coax Sumu back? That mouth was extremely poisonous. He kept calling him ex-husband brother. Yi Xiannan slammed the car door and refused to leave. He leaned against the front of the car and lit a cigarette. Fine, fine, fine. Mr. Cheng, you're amazing. I'll be waiting to see how you're going to woo my ex-wife. Master Cheng wiped his lower lip and then smiled sinisterly. Even if I can't get Miu Miu, I can still bless her. She wants to be on good terms with Lawyer Shen. I think that Lawyer Shen is not bad and pleasing to the eye. He's also kind and loving, so I'm willing to quit. I'm not like some people who don't like him but still want to take advantage of him. I can't stand this kind of people. They're obviously weird all day long, but they still want to be pursued by others. Bah, I can't stand it. Yi Xiangnan frowned. Mr. Cheng, do you have some prejudice against me? Since when was he inferior to Shen Wenshuan? Master Cheng smiled and said, what prejudice can I have? Isn't it normal for a man to steal a woman? Just like how CEO Yi calls me Mr. Cheng, he must not think highly of me in his heart. He must think that I'm a nouveau riche or an uncouth man. I'm different. I think CEO Yi is a pretty good-looking gigolo, so I like to say it out loud. Yi Xiangnan was about to spit out a mouthful of blood. He stared at Master Cheng and wondered who could have given birth to such a scoundrel. Master Cheng wiped his lower lip, leaned against a tree and closed his eyes. He seemed to be talking to himself. I grew up with Su Mu since I was young. I've been eating her food for a few years. I didn't care about Yi Xiangnan in the past, but now that I'm back, I can't allow you to bully her. It's not like I don't know how you rich young masters bully women. Master Cheng said confidently, but then he felt a little guilty. After he became rich, he had learned all these tricks. In the past, he was not like this. He had always been chaste, just to give the best and most complete version of himself to Su Mu. He had been chaste for so many years, and he had waited for Shen Wenshuan, the gigolo. Chapter 5108. Updated quickly, he had waited for so many years for Shen Wenshuan, the pretty boy, to come. After waiting for another time, an enhanced version of the pretty boy came. He was puzzled. Did the young masters of the rich and powerful eat different rice from them? Why were all of them so soft and tender? He really wanted to see if they were the same as women. Why were they born uncouth? Of course, Master Cheng's looks were all right, just a little rough. When Yi Xiangnan heard him say that, he replied coldly, when I had a child with Su Mu, I did not mistreat her, nor would I bully her. He said it in detail on purpose. Indeed, the uncouth man could not take it anymore. His straight nose was buzzing like an old cow giving birth. Then, he said gruffly, that was in the past. Right now, you're no more qualified than me. Yi Xiangnan wanted to piss him off on purpose as he chuckled. Unfortunately, when Sumu and I were fulfilling our obligations, we didn't even have a marriage certificate. Now, I don't know when we'll be in the mood to rekindle our old feelings for each other. Master Cheng clenched his fists so tightly that a cracking sound could be heard. Just the thought of that scene had him wanting to kill this gigolo. Sumu was his goddess. Yet, this man had said it out in such a casual tone without any respect at all. At that moment, Sumu returned. She walked without making a sound, and Master Cheng and Yi Xiangnan did not even notice her bickering. She just stood there quietly before saying softly, I won't have any interest in you, nor will I rekindle our old feelings. Yi Xiangnan was a little dumbfounded. Master Cheng was elated as he reached out to rub his head. Didn't I say that Sumu wouldn't fall for you? How can a gigolo bring happiness to a woman? It's better for her to be with me. Yi Xiangnan's face was livid. If Sumu said that she was willing, he would definitely strangle her to death. He also thought that she would not be willing to pay attention to such a vulgar person, but he did not expect that Sumu would actually say, thank you for treating my father's leg and arranging for Xiaoqing to go to school. I'll treat you to a meal, but it's just at the snack bar in front. I can't afford to treat you to a big meal, and it's not suitable. Master Cheng suddenly became excited and almost laughed out loud. This was a great thing. He just gave an order and it was as easy as lifting a finger, and it made Sumu look at him in a new light. If he had known this earlier, he would have started with her family. However, he seemed to have forgotten that he was the one who broke Su Daqiang's leg. Master Cheng asked his men to stay here, and he and Sumu walked toward the snack bar. Yi Xiangnan didn't expect this change, and he was almost dumbfounded. He stopped Sumu and pursed his thin lips. Sumu, think about it carefully. Sumu turned her head and looked at him calmly. She turned around and left without saying a word. Master Cheng was very happy. He turned around and waved at Yi Xiangnan. Ex-husband, go back. Yi Xiangnan opened the door and got in the car. The expensive sports car ran away at once. Master Cheng touched his head again and smiled. I told you that young master won't lose his temper. Moo, if you really marry him, you will suffer a loss. You see, no matter how good-looking he is, he has a bad temper. You can do whatever you want. Do you know this? No. Sumu took him into the restaurant. Master Cheng didn't care about the small place. With his identity, he now went in and out of extravagant places. Although this place was a little small and shabby, he could be with his childhood goddess. Just thinking about it made him feel super happy. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.